All right, if you're joining in early, welcome in. I'm going to give it about 5 minutes or so for some of the folks to come in. And then we'll go ahead and get started on the Father X content regarding custody. Big shout out to Mr. Pitt here. I know he's probably not in yet, but another Saturday night with Shah. Let's go. Heck yeah, man. Hope to see him in here as well. I sometimes treat this like I'm going to the bar. I'm going to the tavern, you know, on a Saturday night, and I just want to go to the tavern and see what the guys are up to and hang out. Anyways, I'm going to wait for about 5 minutes. So if you're watching this after the fact, I would just skip forward and let some of the folks come on in. Okay. 1 second, guys. Yo, Dan the Man, welcome in. Big shout out to you. Oh, man. Trevor. Many thanks. I appreciate you for the support of the stream. Let me give you some American money over here. Right off the tip. I like the song because it's from a show that I used to watch back in the day. It was one of my favorites. But it was about bounty hunters. And every time a new bounty would come up, they would play that song, and it'd be like a bunch of cowboys and stuff. Hey, Shah, how are things doing in your world? Haven't been active on YouTube for 2 weeks. So I missed your last 3 live streams. If you could suggest just one that I should watch back, which would it be? Let's see. That's a good question. That is a good question. Things have been going quite well for me. You know, I can't complain. I'm pretty happy about stuff. Had a good time. I was not live last Saturday because I was in the Bay Area. And that was a great time. So I've just been, I've been trying to cut back a little bit. I've been fasting a little bit and eating very healthy. I've been going on runs every day. I'm trying to do a little bit of the weight bands, a little bit of light dumbbells, nothing too crazy. And just trim down, get rid of the skinny fat, you know, get ready for my trip to Egypt. I'm going to Egypt on October 3rd. I'll be leaving, and I'll be back October 22nd. And I'm trying to figure out, like, because I want to be able to post content while I'm there, like me in Egypt. And I'm trying to figure out how to do that, but I don't want to bring my laptop because I don't want to have thousands of dollars worth of equipment on me. So I'm going to have my DJI Osmo Pocket 3, and I realized you can Bluetooth footage from there to your iPhone. Okay, so then I'll have my iPhone, and then I'm going to have the Adobe Premiere Rush app, which should allow me to edit apps from my phone. Or not apps, but edit video footage from my phone. And then if I have a separate app that lets me make a thumbnail, I can use my YouTube Studio app to then upload the video. So maybe we'll get a couple videos for me there. I also found another app that will allow me to process raw images. So I'll be doing a lot of photography, and maybe I can get some of the photos from there and see if I can get some posts going. But yeah, other than that, doing well. Let's look at these last 3 live streams. I had one with the resurgence of sanity, which was a kind of a panel style discussion that I thought was pretty good. We also did right to vote. I almost would not like this one. I had fun doing, but I feel bad recommending it because it was kind of like nails on a chalkboard watching this thing. This one was pretty good. It's a little lower energy. It's a newer podcast, you know, so it might not be something that you know what I mean. It could be tough for you to get through it. I enjoyed doing it, and it's an interesting conversation. So I would probably recommend this one because we talked about the Tim Pool, Lauren Shen thing, as well as reacted to a video from It's Complicated. So it was pretty fun. Michael saying, oh gosh, that reminds me. Michael sent me a fantastic video. I know I say every time I won't mention dowry and I won't mention bride price. But he sent me he actually sent me 2 cool videos. Let me pull these up. You know what? We'll save this video for a bonus after we watch Father X today. It's pretty short. It's like 4 minutes, but it's really good. And it's here's why Chinese men pay for a bride. And it talks a little bit about the Chinese bride price, which is pretty interesting. And then Michael also sent me a second video, which I'm thinking to save for next week's. There's been a lot going on. There's been a lot popping off. Just even on Twitter there's been a back and forth between Dr. Baskerville and Joker. Better Batcher actually did a video on that today. And it's kind of regarding a question that I talked to Dr. Baskerville about on the interview I did with him, which was about legal change versus cultural change, and if you need one or the other in order for change to happen. So the other video Michael sent me was this, and it's how conservatives ruined marriage. How conservatives ruined marriage. So it looks pretty good. It's got 15,000 likes. I mean, I'm not going to sit here in front with you guys. This could very well be another Shanosphere, you know, the stream I did last week about the person who infiltrated the Manosphere. It could be another nails on chalkboard, right? But I think it's pretty related to what we discussed. So we might have to slog through that one. Hopefully it's not so bad, though. Hopefully it's not so bad. Yo, Klaus, welcome in. Big shout out to you. I feel like I just walked into the tavern and all my buddies are there and we're going to like knock back a drink or two and just, you know, shoot the shit for a bit. Oh, forgive me for cussing. That's such a faux pas on my part. But yeah, here we are. We got the crew assembled. So today we're going over Father X. And Father X is someone I actually had a private conversation with. So he reached out to me via email. And he's got a great channel here in which he really discusses the technicalities, and he's very specific. He's very precise about his journey through the family law system. And he talks about how do you write your testimony? Are you available? The best interest of the child, what that means. And it just how much he spent on attorneys, all the stuff that happened to judges. It really is just on another level. How fathers can win custody, interview questions for your family lawyer, 10 weaknesses of family court lawyers, how to save thousands on family lawyers. And we're going to be watching a video from him. We're actually watching 6D, so we're watching this video. And it's him giving his entire timeline just about what he had to deal with the family law courts and getting custody and all these kinds of things. There's another thing I wanted to share. Oh, God, it's in the email. I don't want to blast his email. Actually, I think this is pretty good right here. But he let me know and helped me catch wind of there's actually a march coming up. Yo, JP, welcome in, bro. Good to see you. Good to see you, man. So he clued me onto this. So this is kind of late notice for us, but if you guys are near the Washington, D.C. area, there is actually going to be a father's rally for parental justice, and it's going to be over 2 days, September 27th to 28th, at the National Mall in Washington, D.C. So this is looking pretty freaking sweet. So Friday, they'll begin with lobbying Congress from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. alongside the Father's Demonstration of Love, running from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the National Mall. The day will conclude with Daddy's Movie Night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, September 28th, the rally is expected to bring together 50,000 attendees. I really hope there's a huge turnout. I hope this hits national news. I wish I was down there. The 28th, I'll actually be speaking with Paul Elam. You know, it's kind of not practical for me to fly to Washington, D.C., but I really wish I could be there, you know, with the camera and microphone, just talking to some of these guys. I'm sure we'll hear all kinds of stories. So 50,000 attendees to demand reforms in family law and address the systemic injustices faced by fathers in custody battles. The rally is from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the National Mall for a powerful rally in March. There will be a short march, details to be disclosed ASAP. The rally will highlight the need for legislative changes to ensure that fathers are given equal opportunities to custody determinations and that parental rights are respected in all cases. The rally will feature speeches from leading advocates for parental rights, legal experts, and those who have personally experienced the challenges of navigating the family court system. Attendees will hear powerful testimonies and learn about actionable steps that can be taken to address the injustices faced by fathers across the nation. Kevin Reed, the organizer of the rally, emphasized the urgency of the event, stating, "This rally is not just about fathers, it's about justice and equality in the family court system. We must come together to ensure that our voices are heard and that meaningful changes are made to protect the rights of all parents." So that's really exciting stuff right there. And we are going to see, when we watch Father X's video today, just how terrible it can be to have to fight for custody. Like, he did such a good job of detailing every single step of his journey. And there's going to be many times when we're watching this where you're going to be like, oh my God, like, I can't do this. I don't even know if I could if it was me. I don't know how he did it. I'll tell you how he did it. It cost a lot of money. And in my private conversation with him, you know, we had a pretty nice chat just about, you know, how child support interfaced with this and his battle with custody. And the stuff he had to go through was just... was on another level. It was so bad, I really wished I could have live streamed it, but, you know, that wasn't something we discussed prior, but I really wish you guys could seen it. So this is the next best thing. I'm going to go ahead and put an email here in case anybody wants to reach out to this gentleman here who's organizing this march. I mean, I'm proud of that person because that person's actually doing something. You know what I mean? And here's the website. Let me put the website in there for you guys, actually. You know, maybe you guys can kind of share this, too, if you guys know anybody close to D.C. We can get more guys out there, you know. But 28th on the 28th, Fathers Rally for Parental Rights in Washington, D.C. 50,000 Fathers March on Washington. So I really hope this happens. Oh, look, there's a YouTube video on this. Oh, man. Oh, man, this is great. Read the proposed amendment. Okay, yeah, that's right. So what they're trying to actually get an amendment passed. Like, so we're talking constitutional amendment, not states, not even federal act. We're talking constitutional amendment. So that's going to be pretty powerful. I'll read this in a second. Let me just go over the chat real quick, see if I'm missing anything. Hit the like button for the Algo Lads. Yes, please hit the like button. Definitely helps. I definitely appreciate that. I promise not to bring up bride price today. I was telling myself I wouldn't, but now we're going to watch this video after Father X's. And listen, I think it's time for me to just accept it. I came in here thinking I was going to be the child support guy, and it's slowly morphing into me becoming the dowry bride price guy. And I don't know if that's going to be going away anytime soon. Tuning in. Good to see you. Mr. Pitt says, last week's stream was great. The Nails on Chalkboard streams let us know how the manosphere is perceived from the outside, looking in, even if those perceptions are deeply flawed. I appreciate you saying that, honestly. Big shout out to you for saying that. Because I personally like watching that stuff too, just to see. And then it reminds you, right? Because sometimes you can be so deep in the manosphere and so deep in the rabbit hole that you just get sick of it and you're just like, I'm done with this. And sometimes it's also good to be reminded on what's going on out there and kind of, you know, why this place ends up existing to begin with. You know what I mean? And I'm an advocate of kind of moving on. I mean, I like this whole after pill thing. And I know we talked about a little bit about that last stream also. But thank you for that, Mr. Pitt. I appreciate that. Nails on Chalkboard is well said, since she's a woman. Yeah, it's just... it was a struggle. We had to skip a lot of parts of it, which I don't like doing, but it was just not going anywhere. Dan the Man, just be prepared for a lot of isms. It's exactly what it is. So just real quick, one more thing about the Father's March here. So they're trying to propose a new amendment. So the 28th Amendment to ensure the fundamental rights of parents in the upbringing of their children and to affirm the principle that both parents have an equal role in family life. We propose the 28th Amendment to the Constitution. This amendment aims to enshrine a parental Bill of Rights, recognizing the critical importance of equal and fair involvement of both parents in their lives by establishing clear constitutional protections. This amendment seeks to promote stability, support joint custody, arrangements, and safeguard the essential bonds between parents and their children. The 28th Amendment reflects a commitment to upholding the rights of all parents and ensuring that family law respects and protects these rights with impartiality and fairness. So we got a real noble cause here. You know what I mean? These folks are going for it. Looks like there's different sections here. I don't know how much time we should spend reading this. You know what? I'm going to devote a little time to this, guys, just to give this a fair shake. Section 1, joint custody presumption. So in any custody determination involving minor children, joint custody shall be presumed. Okay. Shall be presumed to be the best interest of the child. And 50-50 custody shall be the law of the land unless clear and convincing evidence demonstrates otherwise. I like that. And, you know, what's crazy is that, like, a long time ago, marriage used to help ensure your right over your child. you know. And nowadays, what you find, whether or not you're married, you know, with a state license or you're not married, it really doesn't affect how that custody battle is going to go for you. Unfortunately, it makes no real difference, especially if there's a false domestic abuse allegation. We're going to see that here today. And, you know, you might end up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on attorney's fees, whether or not you were married or had the child out of wedlock. Because these laws really exist outside of the marriage, you know, structure in our legal system. So enshrining this in the Constitution would be pretty freaking cool. You know, how it's going to work out in the ground realities with the courts is yet to be seen. But I mean, the Constitution is really the best place you can go for something like this. Michael says, Justice Scalia said parental rights are not fundamental rights protected by the Constitution. Therefore, the 28th Amendment was created. Wow. Yeah. So there's a lot of legal precedent for that. And that reminds me of I actually looked at a Supreme Court case. I wish I could remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I can't. And it was with this rich family from Monterey, and they'd go back and forth from New York. And there was an affair partner, and there was some time where the kid was spending with the affair partner, and then there was some time where the kid was spending with the actual father and husband. And then, you know, per California law, this thing got appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court because this family had the money to do that. And this guy who was the affair partner was trying to get custody and have custody time with this child. I think her name was Victoria. And it was a whole thing because then it became this thing like, well, what's the point of marriage if somebody can just, now that we have genetic tests and this guy can prove he's the dad, he can just barge in and into my family life and try to get custody. So that ended up going all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I believe it was Justice Scalia, who was on that case. I'll have to look at it again. Who, you know, chose to uphold marriage. So the reason parental rights, if I remember correctly, are not fundamental rights is because by doing that, it weakens marriage even more. See? And then this is where they get you on, well, your relationship with the child matters more. And this is how you end up with people who are genetically the father or they're parentally alienated and they can't see their kids because they can't prove they have a relationship. And this is how they also get you where, you know, you're married and you find out the kid's not yours and the kid's 5 and they're like, too bad you have a relationship with this kid. The law looks at the relationship as more important than biology. So for this to become enshrined in the Constitution is going to have reverberating effects into all this different case law, and there will have to be big changes onto how this has looked. So there are arguments for or against. So Michael, you bring up a fantastic point here. Troxel v. Granville was the controversial case that went before the Supreme Court that dealt with parents' rights. I have to look into that one. There was another one that I saw that came out of California. I wish I could pull that up right now, but I don't want to get distracted. It is a very interesting case. I can't remember if I did a video on that case or not. I think I did. I think, you know what? I'm just going to get distracted. Supreme Court case. Scalia, California. California, Monterey. New York. Affair partner. Marriage case. Let's see what we get. Big money. Big money. All right, come on. Oh, here it is. Michael H. Here it is. Michael H. versus Gerald D. Oh, God. I found it. Thank you, Google. This is it right here. A state can create an irrebuttable presumption that a husband is the father of a child born into his family. So since the state can do that, it's meant to protect the husband's rights over the child because it's born in his family. But this has a double negative in the sense that if you're trying to get out of this, a law like this hurts you, right? Especially if you find out, you're not the dad. Man, this stream is kind of going all over the place right now. I know I promised you Father X, but a lot of this stuff does tie into custody and all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna go. Let's just read a tiny bit. Oh God, this is a lot of background. Then we got a decision. I am committing to a lot. Here. You know what? Let's just read this first paragraph. Michael H. v. Gerald D. was a case decided by the Supreme Court of the United States involving substantive due process in the context of paternity law. Just got an ad. Damn. Oh, God. you know, I'm going to have to reply in chat. If the rest of you guys are seeing me, I have been marking it all the same to where I can skip the ads, and it's not letting me do it anymore. YouTube has finally gotten wise to me. I have skipped so many freaking ads, and they're just like, screw this guy. I'm gonna wait a couple seconds before we go into this so I can give Michael a chance. I'm just gonna type this in the chat. YouTube won't let me skip ads anymore. Used to give me a skip ad button, but they have become wise to my game here. Sorry for the ads, gentlemen and ladies, if you are out there. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is probably gonna be the new normal. If it's up to me, there'd be no ads. I mean, it doesn't really do much for me. I mean, we're talking fractions of a penny. Well, you know, at the inconvenience of the viewers is just a complete pain. I don't like that. I don't like going on, you know, having momentum, and then like some of the viewers get an ad, and then they're missing the context when they come back in to see, or they're behind in the chat. So that kind of sucks, but I'll give another 40 seconds here, see if we get Michael back in. Let's see. Michael, let me know when the ads are over. Klaus says, I got no ads in stream, but I always have to go through 2 of them at the start. Got it. It might be region specific. I know you're in Germany. But again, if I ever see the button pop up that lets me skip the ads, I will totally do it. I am anti-ad over here. So it was only a second and allowed me to skip. Okay, thank God. All right. Anyways, let's get back to this. I'm just going to start from the beginning. Michael H. v. Gerald D. was a case decided by the Supreme Court of the United States involving substantive due process in the context of paternity law. Splitting 5-4, the court rejected a challenge to a California law that presumed that a married woman's child was a product of that marriage. By the way, that goes back to like 1872, and it's written in California law that an issue of a woman, of the wife, is seen legally as the husband's child, right? So now we got genetic tests. Suddenly there's affair partners. Suddenly they're like, that's biologically my kid. I know it's my kid, and I want custody with that kid. So now that gives us a problem. Child support doesn't care. They're just like, we just want to charge whoever we can charge, and that's what they use genetic tests for. But when genetic tests came on the fray, it gave a problem for custody laws. Holding that the due process rights of a man who claimed to be a child's biological father had not been violated. So, background. The biological fathers of illegitimate children traditionally receive no legal rights, and states pass laws that denied them the custody on the grounds that they were likely irresponsible and uninterested in their children. In Stanley v. Illinois, 1972, the Supreme Court of the United States had previously addressed the constitutionality of such laws. Peter and Joan Stanley lived together as an unmarried couple for 18 years. After Joan's death, Peter was denied custody of 2 of his children on the grounds that he was not their parent under state law. The Supreme Court ruled in his favor, holding that since unmarried fathers have a liberty interest in their relationships with children whom they had sired and raised, states could not remove the children without providing the father a chance to demonstrate his fitness. The court subsequently addressed questions involving the constitutionality of legitimacy laws in Quilloin v. Walcott, Caban v. Muhammad, and Lair v. Robertson. According to the Washington Post Ruth Marcus, the facts of the dispute more closely resembled a soap opera synopsis than a typical Supreme Court case. Carol D. was a model. So these are rich people. I mean, they're out there in Monterey, California, Carmel. These people got money if you ever been out that way. In 1976, she wed Gerald D., who worked as an executive in a French oil corporation. We're talking big money out here. The couple resided in Playa del Rey, California. Beginning in 1978, Carol had an affair with Michael H. Michael has now entered the building. Who was her next door neighbor? Aha! Okay, so this guy's out working the oil, you know what I mean, for the French out here. And she's out here chilling in Monterey, and then, the neighbor just happened to come by. after a lovely day golfing next to the Pacific Ocean. In 1981, she gave birth to a child, Victoria D. The birth certificate listed Gerald as the father, but Carol told Michael that she thought that the child was his. Blood tests taken later. So this is before we had DNA tests. Before DNA tests, we had blood tests, and blood tests weren't as accurate as DNA testing was. It did a much better job of excluding who the father was, more so than saying this person definitively is the dad. So it's like you'd have a whole trial, and there'd be like, we think it's these three guys. Then they do blood tests and be like, based off the blood work, this guy's definitely not the father. This guy's not the father. Like, you're the only one left, buddy. It's probably you. Anyways, blood tests were, yo, big money coming in from Robert over here. Big shout out to you, Robert. Big shout out. Always good to see you. Annoying. It took forever to get in the chat, just in case I kicked, dude. Here's a tip. Dude, I hope this did not charge you twice, bro, because it's showing me the same super chat twice. If I got to give you your money back, we'll figure it out somehow. Okay? So thank you for the $25, but I'm seeing 2 of these come in. And it must be an error. So we'll connect after this, and let me figure this out with you. All right? I don't want to feel bad about taking the extra 25. But other than that, I don't know. I don't think you meant to do that because it's the same message, but thank you so much for your generosity. If I accidentally gave you $50, I don't care. You're my buddy. Oh, God, Robert. Let me know. Talk to me after the stream. Just, I do appreciate all the support everybody gives, honestly. Now, where the money's going, well, I don't want to dishonor you guys and spend it all on 1/6 action figures, but I have been buying a lot of camera equipment, getting ready for my trip to Egypt. I just got a 28 millimeter, which is a beautiful travel lens here. Fantastic lens. I got that on sale. And then I got this wide angle lens, because if I try to get all 3 of the pyramids in the shot, I'm gonna need a wide angle lens. And then I got this nice travel cam right here. That's a Canon EOS R50. And I also got the BR-E1. I can't get it to focus. But this is basically a clicker, so I can get pictures of myself in front of all these cool monuments, right? Put it on a tripod, get it out there. So, again, Robert, many thanks, man. I appreciate you a lot. Arthur says, what's up, Shah? I'm just here for the dowry talk. Dude, if you just got here, I've already mentioned dowry and bride price. I'd say at least 4 times. Like, if it was a drinking game, everybody would be buzzed. The good news is after we watch Father X's video, we're going to watch another video. Here's why Chinese men pay for a bride. So that's going to be the bonus video today. So we're getting plenty of dowry talk. There can be no dispute about that. I did get derailed into a Supreme Court case about custody. So this is going all over the place. So moving on. In old state law, fathers were presumed to be unfit if they had a child out of wedlock. Interesting. That was challenged in the Supreme Court, and legislation was reversed. Parents are no longer assumed unfit. And that explains why you have literally custody, like you have custody law that exists outside of marriage. Because if it's like it used to be, what you're describing is kind of evidence for how custody was ingrained within the sort of legal framework of marriage, right? And if a child's born out of wedlock, they're unfit to be a parent. If it's in, the father has way more rights. But then with these Supreme Court cases and stuff like this, what they did is they sort of extracted custody outside of the marriage framework and put it outside of it to exist on its own. So that's how and the reason was so many kids being born out of wedlock, they want to make these guys fathers in one way or another, and they want them, ideally, I guess, in the child's lives. But all this kind of did was chopped at the tree of marriage, the legal institution, and made it weaker. There are some nice action figures. Thank you. I love these action figures. I got Keanu Reeves. That's the Black Panther guy, T'Challa. And then that's the villain dude, Michael B. Jordan, Sweeney Todd, Leon the Professional. We got to have a Predator in here and Darth Maul. It can become addicting buying these figures. So I had to slow down. This in part due to the increase of children born out of there you go, born out of wedlock. Unwed fathers have just as much right to their children as they were married. Yeah, and so that's what leads to this Supreme Court case that we're looking at now, because now, you have them change this and you're saying, okay, unwed fathers have rights to their kids. So then you start getting people challenging in the custody court saying, hey, I'm this kid's father and I want custody of this kid. But you have mom and dad who are living in a married household with the kid, and there's essentially this guy, whether he's the father or not, intruding into this sort of sanctity of the marriage in order to kind of be like, well, I want to see my kid too. And if you're the husband, you're like, what the hell is going on right now? All right. Blood tests. Sorry if this is too much text. I know text looks really ugly on screen and it's just not pretty. So, I'll try not to be torturous with this. Blood tests taken later that year indicated with 98% certainty that Michael was Victoria's father. Uh-oh. Oh, man. Throughout 1982, Victoria and Carol resided in multiple homes, living with Michael, Gerald, or someone else. Someone else? Okay. Carol eventually refused to let Michael visit Victoria, and he filed suit in California Superior Court in November 1982, seeking visitation and a recognition that he was the biological father. Michael and Carol signed a stipulation that said that Michael was the father, but Carol subsequently ended her relationship with Michael and again moved in with Gerald. So they decided to fix their marriage. She directed her lawyers not to file the stipulation with the court. Having intervened in the case, Gerald moved for summary judgment, invoking Section 621 of the California Evidence Code. That statute, which dated back to 1872, so this is going back, created a presumption that a married woman's child was the product of the marital relationship. A presumption that could be rebutted only by the husband or wife and only under narrow circumstances. So see that it still kind of operates like that today in California. And basically there's a presumption you're the father. Like when you're married, especially if you're cohabitating with your wife and she has a kid, you're presumed as that father, as the legal father of that child, right? And this right here is talking about a rebuttal. In California, you have 2 years, or until the kid is 2, if you're under this presumption, to be able to rebut that by challenging paternity. And that's not a guarantee that they'll remove the paternity status, because it could still be in the best interest of the child for you to continue being the father. The Superior Court granted Gerald's motion, rejected challenges by Victoria, represented by a guardian ad litem, because she's a child, she's a minor, and Michael to the law's constitutionality, and denied visitation on the grounds that it would violate the intention of legislature by impugning the integrity of the family unit. The California Court of Appeal, 2nd District, affirmed, holding that the law did not violate Michael's rights under the 14th Amendment's due process clause. So he's trying to argue that, well, there's these new laws that allow unmarried fathers to get access of their child. I'm biologically the father, and furthermore, the child's even lived with me for some amount of time, so I can say I've had a relationship with that child. And the thing that was so weird about this case is that the mom went back and forth, so this child, Victoria, spent an equal amount of time with the affair partner and an equal amount of time with the dad. So that made it even more confusing, because if she was just with the husband, then they can say, well, you don't have a relationship with this kid. We're going to go with the dad. But since he can also say, hey, I was living with the child, she knows me, then it got really hairy. Oh gosh, I lost my... Okay, the court... let me just look at chat real quick. Oof, yeah. It's what's best for the kid, supposedly. Yeah, we're going to hear all about best interest of the child today when we watch this custody video. The Court of Appeal denied rehearing, and the Supreme Court of California declined to hear the case. Michael and Victoria appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, which you got to have some serious coin, by the way, to do all these appeals. Justice is not cheap, just saying. Which heard arguments on October 11th, 1988. Michael contended that he had a liberty interest in his relationship with Victoria, and that the due process clause required that he have an opportunity to be heard before he could be deprived of that liberty interest. Okay, so we're going to get to the decision. Here's this legend right here, Justice Antonin Scalia. So he was there back in the day making some decisions. The court, is he still, didn't he pass away? I think some having him. The court handed down its decision on June 15th, 1989. dividing 5-4. The justices affirmed the Court of Appeals decision. Justice Antonin Scalia wrote for a plurality. His opinion was joined by Chief Justice William Rehnquist. And with the exception of a footnote by Justices Sandra Day O'Connor and Anthony Kennedy, O'Connor filed a concurrence, which was joined by Kennedy. Justice John Paul Stevens wrote an opinion occurring in the judgment. Justice William J. Brennan, Jr., joined by Justices Thurgood Marshall and Harry Blackmun and Justice Byron White, filed separate dissents. Okay. I'm just going to read this last paragraph, and we're going to get into the fun here. I know I've been torturing you guys with this. It's a mania with me. For the plurality, Scalia rejected Michael's argument that he had a procedural due process right to be heard regarding his paternity claim, reasoning that the challenged California law was substantive rather than procedural. That's going to be some real deep esoteric sounding legality stuff. I think Michael might be able to, Michael Sahan might be able to help us understand what that means. Treating Michael's arguments as an invocation of substantive due process, the plurality then concluded that he had no constitutionally protected liberty interest in his relationship with Victoria. So this kind of gets into what Michael was saying earlier, that parental rights are not fundamental rights, protected constitutionally. And this probably also explains, why these legends here are trying to get this actual amendment to the Constitution in order to undo a lot of this legal, sort of headway that's already been made in the other direction. Let's see. Scalia reasoned that since courts ought to be hesitant to embrace substantive due process arguments, only liberty interests that have been traditionally protected by our society, this is him putting his hat in to protect marriage, are constitutionally protected. His sixth footnote asserted that the judiciary should assess claims of constitutionally protected liberty interests by looking to the most specific level at which a relevant tradition protecting or denying protection to the asserted right can be identified. He therefore reasoned that the case involved the rights of an adulterous natural father. You see that word adulterous in there? This is kind of going back to maybe pieces of a traditional culture that existed more back then than it did now, right? Like, you adulterous man. And that such rights had not traditionally, because we care more about marriage, we didn't have genetic tests or blood tests back then, rights had not traditionally been protected by American society. So that was the reasoning from this, this justice right here. And if you guys really want to get into this, this is a long, I started reading this and I didn't finish it. I hate to lie, but this is every aspect of this case. Like, if you really want to get into the history of this case, I'm just going to put this in here. I'm glad for the Wikipedia today. So let me go ahead and just put that in there. If you guys are really interested in this case and you want to go, see more about it and read about every aspect and all the stuff about it, this going to be what you want to see. Let's see. Oh, gosh. Michael Sand says, best interest of the child was a bad doctrine created by a judge to deny a biological father the inheritance of his biological child by stepdad. The judge said it is not in the best interest of the child. Yeah, not in the best interest of. And that's what we're dealing with a lot today, That basically plagues custody orders. That's kind of takes away father's rights in marriage. Child support, all those things. That best interest of right there. LOL, don't blame you for not repeating my off-color joke. I must have missed it. I'm so sorry. It's what's best for the kids, supposedly. Sorry about that. I do get a little shy with certain jokes. Yes, he did. Procedural due process is the procedure. Substantive is what is presumed to be true but unsaid. Like, privacy rights are not written rights but assumed. I see that. It's not exactly this, but it kind of reminds me of like the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. And the spirit might include certain things that aren't exactly put down in the law, but maybe they're more upheld or assumed. Okay, anyways, that was one heck of a branch out. We got to get to Father X here. And what to expect here. So this is Father X, How Fathers Can Win Child Custody, episode 6D. This is part of a series. So there's a 6A, 6B, 6C, part D. This is the family court timeline and process. And I really want you guys to see this because I want you guys to understand how terrible it can be to have to deal with the custody courts. And more so why a lot of guys just don't even deal with it after a certain point, because it's like once you're like 12 grand in and you can't afford anymore and you're already paying child support, maybe even spousal support, you know, you lost a house, you're living in a 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. You're lucky you got a full-size mattress instead of a queen size, and you're trying to make this place good enough to be able to tell the judge, like, hey, you know, my place is safe enough for my child. Can I please get custody? And it's just like all these things, and it costs a lot for the lawyer and all that kind of stuff. So we're about to hear that firsthand.
Good morning. I'm Father X, talking about how fathers
Also, guys, let me know if sound is an issue.
can win their child custody case. In this episode, we're going to talk about the overall timeline and process of a custody case in family court. Let's get to it. Why does this matter? The numbers clearly tell us the odds are against the father when it comes to child custody after a divorce or separation. To get through your custody case, you have to understand the timeline and events of the family court process. And
I love how he does this. He does a really great job of making charts. I will probably stop this fairly regularly just because there's music. I'm sure it's, you know, not a big deal. I'm not super tripping about copyright. I just don't want them to stop this midstream. Sometimes if the YouTube algo picks up a certain thing, they'll give you a warning and say, if you keep reacting to this, we're going to kill the stream. I mean, we're going to cut the stream. And so that's what I'm trying to prevent. Robert says, have a lazy ass ex. That's how you can do it. She likely owes me. Sound is good. Thank you, Michael. Sound is fine. Perfect. All right, moving on. Let's just look at this. How much is there to know about family court? 0 to 15%. The little you know today. 50%. 60 to 75%. Where you need to be right now. 100%. How much you know at the end. Yeah, you might as well get a PhD in this if you've been put through it. Question. Can you win a board game like Monopoly, Parcheesi, I never played that, or chess if you don't know the rules? Family court is the same. Excellent point. Excellent point.
how the game is played. And you have to proactively prepare and plan ahead to manage each step of the process. If you're just reacting to everything that gets thrown at you, then you're more likely to get steamrolled. I'm giving you an example of a live case using my case, so that you can see the reality of how things can work in family court. In episode 6A and 6B, I discussed my first day in family court. Remember that in the real world, before court happened, I was a victim of the mother's domestic violence, and the mother was suicidal, had severe anger management issues, threatened to kill our unborn child with a kitchen knife, and was floating between bipolar and borderline personality disorder. And remember that after 40 months and a full trial, I was ultimately deemed to be the parent more fit to raise our son.
You hear that? He said 40 months. He said over 40 months. So this custody battle from the child being born up until the courts actually gave him full custody, being more fit, and when it was incredibly obvious, you know, with the mom's domestic stuff and abuse and mental health issues, it still took them 4 years. So he had to fight for 4 years to be able to get that. I also like how you mentioned guys being steamrolled. And I used to see that in child support court. People go in there, they think they're going to say something that in their mind sounds right, but it just has like nothing to do with the law, and they just get steamrolled in there. And sometimes they're paying a lawyer to basically do nothing for them, and they still get steamrolled. I like this right here. It says best interest of the child at the top. And, you know, it just has a list: domestic violence, mental and emotional stability, mental health of the parents, emotional, psychological, social development, intellectual development, forensic evaluation. These are all things that you kind of need to fight the case. You know, home environment, availability of the parents, financial stability, primary caretaker, fostering child's relationship with other parent, lying and manipulating the court process. So this is stuff he had to prove about what the other side, you know what I mean, like in terms of like lying and manipulating the court process. So this is a huge process.
So here's the court process on how he got there. On the first day of court,
look at this, 4 years. 4 years. So he filed around here. First day of court is literally 8 months later. That's how long this is going to take. Then you had the second year, the third year, the fourth year, and finally like the fourth year at the 11th month was the final custody order. So prior to this is all mediation. This is meeting with your attorney. This is getting a bunch of crappy offers that you got to deny. This is going up there and doing depositions with the court and having to, you know, be asked questions by the attorneys and the others. I mean, we're talking, you know, objection hearsay, objection this, objection relevance, all that stuff that you're going to be going through. And it all costs money. Michael says, oh, shoot. Could you slightly lower the volume on the video? I prefer having your voice louder. Perfect. Excellent. Put that for you right there. Please let me know if that works, Trevor. And thank you for the feedback on that. Thank you so much. Lawyers are required to represent first the court, then the client. So lawyers are there trying to please the judge. That's actually really interesting point also. You know, the thing I notice about lawyers is a lot of lawyers are a lot of things are very template based. Because I used to see a lot of divorce orders. I used to see a lot of custody orders. And a lot of attorneys are just used to like using templates and just putting names in. And there's a lot of run-of-the-mill cases, and it's very rare, and it typically takes a lot of money. And then it takes finding a lawyer with, you know, some sense that actually knows how to do the job in order to get like an order that's this thick, where they've actually put forth an original, well-reasoned argument to help you, the client. And that's rare to see. If you guys remember my child support story time, I think it was the first one. I got to do more of those. I think it was the first one. And it was about that surgeon, you know, who hired that that ex-child support judge who was a retired child support judge, and he just would take cases because he's retired and feels like it. That guy wrote a freaking judgment or an order that was this thick. I read the entire thing, and it was the most like well put together. It was like the Ferrari of like family law work instead of your like normal Happy Meal, which most of us, you know, are used to getting.
Court, the referee ignored the total set of best interest factors and issued temporary custody to the mother only because the mother was unemployed and available.
See that? So there's all these reasons why he would have been a better parent early on. You know, she was doing domestic violence, threatening to harm the child. She had mental, emotional stability problems, intellectual development. It looks like a forensic evaluation was done. She was alienating the child from him. She was unemployed. The home environment wasn't great, but the court didn't even care. They were just like, oh, she's unemployed. We'll have her take the kid. And you know what? You're going to be the guy paying, because we need somebody to be the cash cow out here. The annoying thing is that if they have the kids for the last 4 years, the judge will often use that as the reason to keep the kid with the mom, because that is what they are used to. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's just, at that point, it becomes the norm. And this is where false domestic allegation abuses are such a problem, because they give mom a temporary restraining order without a hearing, because they have to take her seriously, or take anybody seriously based off of domestic violence, because it could be real. But what happens is, you know, dad gets taken out of the house. He now has to fight this thing. That could take any amount of time. But in the meantime, mom has the kid, or whoever, you know, is alleging the abuse has the kid, and it's cementing their relationship, and it's making it so that the other person doesn't see the kid. And then the court's like, well, this is what's in the best interest of the child. The child is used to this. The child is going to this school now. You know, this guy had to move on the other side of town, on the other side of the railroad tracks. And it becomes an uphill battle, which we're going to see here. That guy is married to my ex. Yeah, well, the story is more frequent, you know. A lot of guys are dealing with this exact story. Is it true in the juris secundum that an attorney's first obligation is to the court, then to the public, and then to the client? That's interesting right there. That's some esoteric knowledge. Robert Spencer, doing my best to remember his name. He's like 100 years old. That's all right. It'll come to you. Michael saying status quo demands children to stay with the mother as the primary unless you can prove the child is quote unquote endangered. Best interest cannot reverse primary custody. That's some gold level information right there. Now, and Michael, you might know this. Is that because of the tender years doctrine? Like, is that why that's the status quo? Because that's interesting. Even best interest can't undo that all the way. You have to show that the child's endangered, which costs a lot of money to do. Yo, Braylon, welcome in. Braylon, I think it was you that was going on a date. You had to run to the grocery store last Friday. I think you mentioned you were going on a date. I hope your date went well, if that was you. It's sad because now the word abuse is used so loosely. Yeah, exactly. And it could just be twisted and turned however they want.
The mother was given custody 5 nights every week, and I was made a weekend dad from Friday night to Sunday afternoon. At the end of that first hearing, the referee ordered a Child Protective Services investigation to evaluate the issues of domestic violence. And
that's CPS. These are the guys that could take your kids away. They're across the street from me at the child support court. Engaging conversation. Yo, Will, welcome in, man. I've been loving your TikToks lately. You're gonna tell us about your date during the stream? Maybe we'll save that for the end. All I can say is it went very well. Very well. It was very fun and very cool. And I hope Braylon's date went just as well. So crazy mom with knife qualifies as endangered. Exactly. Yeah, and it should, but it didn't at first for his case.
The home environment of each parent. The referee didn't make any effort to understand which parent was committing domestic violence, but instead outsourced that to a social worker at Child Protective Services. That Child Protective Services investigation took place.
Listen, I just gotta say, as someone who's like worked tangentially to all this stuff, this is exactly like what the county and the state workers look like. He could not have picked more accurate pictures. And I swear to God, all these people will annoy the heck out of you. They're all just doing their jobs. They're just following the law. But when you're out there dealing with it, you're just going to be like, oh.
During August and September, when the social worker visited me and the mother separately in our homes. At the end of September, we went back to court for our second day of court.
Michael Sand says, you are correct. Status quo was used after the tender years doctrine. Got it. And that's the one that, it just basically biases towards the mom custody of the kids.
But this time we had a new judge. This judge was overseeing the false criminal allegations against me, as well as the custody matter. Of course, this new judge didn't know anything about me, the mother, or our son, and obviously didn't know the criminal allegations were fabricated by the mother. In court, in the morning sessions, approximately 20 other sets of parents are there to have an appearance before the judge. So every couple gets approximately 10 minutes each on average to talk to the judge. Basically,
oh my God, this is like the most accurate photo of the judge ever. And what he's trying to point out too is that like when you get there, I think people kind of have it in their mind like this is going to be about you. You're going to get your day in court. But you go up there, it's intimidating. You're up there for like, 5-10 minutes. There's hella other people that need to get their thing heard. You're on a calendar. Everybody's just trying to get through it. You know what I mean? And you might go up there, barely say 2 sentences, and then they're like, bam, there's the order. And you're like, wait a minute. And they're like, get out of our way. We need to let the next set of parents up. And you didn't even say what you wanted to say. So it takes a certain level of like assertiveness. You know what I mean? Robert Spencer says, CPS visited me over my... Wow. That's hard to imagine. You are like the most like quintessential, just... well-rounded, kind, gentle, caring person, let alone father I've ever met in my life. That's unbelievable. Over my daughter jabbing herself in the hand with some scissors. Wow. Michael Sayan says, what the judge will ask is, regardless of the fitness of the other parent, is the child thriving under the care of the primary parent? So the kids have good grades, etc. The custody can't be changed. Man, this is all so important for people to know, because it's like people go in there and be like, well, I got a right to see my kid. But it's like there's all these little just factors and stipulations and things that are going to come in the way of you being able to see your kid. And you have to make a hell of an argument to do that. Sorry, Robert. I'm still thinking about what you're saying. So she was just doing a little project and she accidentally cut herself. We all did as kids. I literally got a scar on my hand from cutting myself. I actually got 2 scars. One of them isn't even from me. One of them was from my brother. Like I was trying to do something with the paper, and he came in with the scissors to try to cut it, and he just got me really good. I was probably like 9 years old at the time. Michael saying, what the judge will ask, will not a lot of happy people in child support. No. Yes, that, you're speaking facts, my good sir. Robert Spencer, I told the kid that if she ever did that again, she'd be welcome to go to foster care. She hasn't done it since. That's one way. That's one way to get him to listen.
These appearances become a speed contest where there's no intelligent thought about the best interest of the child.
Exactly. This is the Happy Meal. This is the Happy Meal order, right? It's a speed contest. It's like, here, get your food. Come here, get your burger. Oh, what, you wanted no cheese? Sorry, you didn't say no cheese earlier. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's it. You're stuck with that. Now you got to go back in line probably, unless they're super kind. Try to get them to remake another one with no cheese. But that's what it is. There's too many people. The courts are too backed up. It's too busy. So it's like, get you in, get you out.
If there's any thought at all. In the afternoon sessions, there are 2.5 hours devoted to one custody trial at a time, where the lawyers are questioning and cross-examining the witnesses, and each side is presenting evidence. During the trials in the afternoon, you, your ex-wife, and the court employees are generally the only ones in the courtroom. Every state and courthouse can have different processes on how they do this, but I'm giving you one real example so you can then figure out exactly how this is going to work in your case, in your courtroom.
I love that he puts this picture after that little last stock footage of the court, which looks all grand and majestic, but like this is what it looks like. It is not glamorous.
In late September, we had our second appearance, but with this new judge. And in this episode, I won't get into the details of all the statements made in court because it would take too much time, but I'll discuss that in a future episode. I recently read our court transcripts again for purposes of this video, so I'm not just stating these things from memory. In this September appearance, the Child Protective Services investigation was allegedly completed, but nobody knew where it was, nobody read it, and the court had to go find it for the next court date. My lawyer and I also asked the judge to give us 3 nights a weekend and alternating Wednesdays, because I changed my job schedule and was available to parent on Fridays. I took away the excuse that the referee had on the first court appearance. But the judge ignored our arguments and continued to rubber stamp the mother for primary custody.
This is like the perfect expression. This is what it's going to be like. You're going to go in there and it's going to make all the sense to you. And then they're just going to be like, no, sorry. You're going to have to try again later. You're going to have to pay all this money. And she's going to be looking at you just like this.
Ending a trial. So I learned that without a trial, default primary custody goes to the mother. The court also decided a guardian ad litem attorney for the child wasn't necessary because he was less than 1 year old and unable to speak.
Guardian ad litem is someone who is like a third party appointed for the child that helps to facilitate, what the child's interest in that case. Michael Sands says, due process of the 14th Amendment guarantees that you have full procedural due process in your court case, even in the family court. That means witnesses and cross-examination. They don't want you to know. That's very true. That's very true. Here's the thing. They don't want you to know, but I can say it's glossed over because they have to gloss it over. But a lot of guys it sounds like a bunch of just words coming at them because it sounds like way more than they even know what to do with. When I worked in child support, if I had someone signing a legal document in front of me like a stipulation, which would then go on to become a judgment, I had to read something called a waiver of rights. So they had to sign an acknowledgement saying they were waiving rights. And it was like a big block of legal text, and it'd be like, you're waiving the right for a genetic test, you're waiving the right for a trial. That was in there. And yes, you're 100% right. You are entitled to that. Typically those processes take time. They do take money. And it takes a lot of work, but a lot of people are so ignorant to what rights they have in court and the court process, and the worker's just going to be like, hey, you got to sign this form, and then we could go to the next step on this. Here, did you read the acknowledgement of waiver of rights? Here, let me read it to you. And you read it to them hecka fast, and they're like, whatever, I'm taking off work to be here. They're trying their best to understand, but they're overloaded with information, so they sign that document, and then the trial goes away. Robert says, I didn't know that my ex-wife became a judge. It's like the quintessential ex-wife. Guardian ad litem is unconstitutional. It is the court appointing a child lawyer to protect the child's constitutional rights. However, children don't have constitutional rights, only their parents. Oh, that's actually really interesting. See, and this is the stuff, like when you look at that proposed 28th Amendment, I believe that they said it was, of trying to get these fundamental rights for parents, it really is through the child and these kinds of things that they have undone the husband's or the, the man's previous legal position when it came to a marriage. And this is yet another reason why, marriage as Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles try to sell it to you as, has it's become defunct at this point. The contract is neutered, and it really is heavily biased towards one side. Uh-oh. Right there.
In October, my criminal lawyer arranged for me to meet the district attorney's office. This meeting was called Queen for a Day, where we had a confidential meeting without the mother to discuss the facts of the case with the DA to see if they would dismiss the charges. I think the two district attorneys showed up thinking this was a case where the woman is a victim of domestic violence and everybody can turn off their brains.
That's such a good point. I mean, they're all coming in there like it's just, they're seeing the same thing happen like 90% of the day. And most of these people get in there and their biggest concern is like, what am I going to eat for lunch today? And you're standing there and your entire like life and your relationship with your child is hanging in the balance, whether or not you're going to go to jail. And a lot of them are already coming in and they've looked at the facts of what's written on the case. And, they're already kind of expecting it to go a certain way. Braylon says, even criminals have more right in court than a man in family court. Yeah, I don't know if you remember from my discussion, I can't remember whose question it was, but what I asked Dr. Stephen Baskerville at the end of our interview, and it was Klaus's question, and he asked about, what can a guy do with false domestic abuse or this kind of thing, and Dr. Stephen Baskerville was to say to try to get it moved into criminal court, because at least you have rights. You have those kinds of rights in criminal court, so it's a good answer.
We met for 2 hours where I introduced the DA to the actual reality of the circumstance. After that meeting, the district attorney had to go think hard about their case against me. After 2 hours, and everybody can turn off their brains. We met for 2 hours where I introduced the DA to the actual reality of the circumstance. After that meeting, the district attorney had to go think hard about their case against me. I'll give more details in future episodes when I discuss criminal allegations. Before I continue, please like, subscribe, and share.
Guys, please hit the like button here, and please go to Father X's channel. I'm going to put his channel in the chat. His channel is just so well put together. He is just so meticulous. And like I talked to him, I talked to him personally, and he's like in the finance world, and he's a math guy. So this guy is like, I don't, I'm not a math guy. I always wished I was, but he has everything down to like an accountant's level of like precision, of this whole process, which I absolutely admire.
Also, if you find this information helpful and you want to support this channel so I can make more videos, please donate via my YouTube channel's About page. You can donate via PayPal or Venmo. In early November, we went back to court. In my first appearance that day, it was the district attorney versus me, with my criminal lawyer in front of the judge. It was just about 5 minutes long because the DA dismissed all the criminal charges against me.
Very nice. So look at this. Year one. So he's 11 months in, and it's finally being dismissed against him. This is 11 months later. So this child, is mostly residing with mom for almost a solid year.
But I wanted the DA to file criminal charges against the mother for lying in a police report, and the DA refused. I learned...
So there's outright perjury. They dropped the charges, and he's just like, hey, listen, the mom lied to the police about this false abuse allegation. And the DA is like, yeah, whatever. Like, we don't, he's just wondering about afternoon tea and when that's going to be brought in. Michael saying the child's constitutional rights is part and parcel of the parent's constitutional rights. Parents' rights protect the children. A child does not have a fundamental right for safety and security. That's some deep stuff right there. Michael has clearly been down the rabbit hole when it comes to like the inner workings of the law. Like you sir, teach me something every time. If it is against a parent.
That if a mother files a police report, then the police and DA act quickly to arrest the father. But when the father wants to have the mother arrested for lying in that police report, everybody in the legal system runs away like a coward.
I just got to stop it again just to acknowledge that point. And I think a lot of guys who've been through this know that that is the reality. And a lot of guys, it's just, unless you have the time and the money to fight against this, it's sadly a cost-benefit analysis situation. And that's why, you know, like, at the very least, I'd love to see a taxpayer-funded custody court where fathers can go in there and have a chance at seeing their kids, and they don't have to, you know, spend thousands of dollars out of their pocket to try to do that. If we cared about fathers being in their child's lives, we would do something like that at the very least.
When that 5-minute session ended, the district attorney left, and I stayed in front of the judge. The mother was called up to hear the case of the mother versus me in the child custody and the order of protection matter. This time, we finally had the Child Protective Services written report. But the social worker was unable to figure out who the perpetrator of domestic violence was, so that whole exercise proved useless. Then my lawyer again asked the judge for equal parenting time, noting that in the court-ordered investigation, the mother admitted she threw a bottle at the father's head in anger, and the mother admitted she took a knife during her pregnancy and placed it to her stomach, saying she would end the pregnancy. So those bad facts were confirmed, but the judge ignored the negative evidence against the mother and continued to rubber stamp her for primary custody.
You hear that? So she admitted those things that he had said of her, that she had threatened to end the baby's life, and that she had thrown a beer bottle at him. And the court knows that she admitted that. Like, that's admitted to them via this other report here. And even still, I mean, the judge is going to sit there looking at you just like this and be like, well, let's just go ahead and keep her as the primary parent. Oh, man. Women are killing the human race, which is funny, as they are the ones who suffer the most in old age. You know, I've been thinking about old age a lot. You know, there's always that threat, like, you're going to be alone. You're going to be alone and all this stuff. And I don't know. You know, I kind of consider myself lucky, like, in the sense of, like, most guys at a lot of points in history, our fate was not to die old and alone. It was to die on a battlefield. Maybe one like Ukraine, where a DJI drone is looking at you and then it drops something on you, or it's an FPV drone and it goes right into you, and bam, your legs are turned into spaghetti. That's what we were promised out here. So getting it to old age and chilling is not as scary to me as a lot of these people want to make it sound. It's almost like, well, you're going to be old and alone sounds like a projection coming from the woman's side onto the guys. Like, that actually doesn't sound so bad to me. My cat's out there.
Judge started talking about the idea that we would need a forensic evaluation by a third-party psychologist in order to proceed with a trial. The judge asked us to talk in between court dates to see if the parents could settle the case or if we needed to move forward with forensics and a trial. In late November, we had
And look at that. So we're not even done with year one. Remember, this is going to go on 1, 2, 3 more years after this. 3 more years.
Another 10-minute court appearance. My lawyer asked for more equal parenting time for me. And again, the judge refused without providing any intelligent reason, just saying that she was going to wait until a full trial. So again, the mother is rubber stamped unless there's a full trial.
See, and that's kind of going into what Michael's saying. But in this case, I mean, there's basically evidence showing that the child's life is endangered. But they're just like, well, we want to wait for the trial. And it's like, I don't know why they're doing that. I don't know if it's for them to make more money. It's definitely going to cost more money. Will says, probably going to be a lot more alone people in a few decades. Yeah, I think you're right on both sides. I do hope that technology is like this. Like, imagine 20, 30 years from now, you're living by yourself. But, you know, streaming is a thing. You know what I mean? Maybe people get together more digitally. Maybe that helps older folks in their old age a lot easier. You know what I mean? Who knows what the technology is going to look like then? So that could be a stand-in for, you know, people who are alone in their old age. Michael saying, the psychological term is triggered. The mother was triggered by the father too. That is how the courts get around women found guilty of domestic abuse. The father caused it. I see. It's always the guy. It's always the guy. Klaus says, I'm old and alone. I enjoy it a lot as I have my stuff together. Big shout out to you, man. Big shout out. Honestly, guys like you, like whenever I meet an older gentleman and they're just chilling and they look happy, it makes me feel like better, because it's just like, hey, okay, yeah, this is an option. I'm glad this is an option. Like, doesn't mean we should all, whatever. It's an option, whether or not you want to do it or not. Like, you're not gonna be this miserable person. I've even talked to my dad about this. It's like, I asked him, like, do you know anybody who like is your age and they never had kids or anything? He's like, yeah, I know a few people. I was like, are they unhappy? He's like, no, they seem fine. So, I'm not convinced. I think that's more, again, a projection coming from the other side to try to like make us feel bad, but it's really what they're afraid of, What frame of mind do you have to be in to give a degenerate mother full custody of a child after placing the child in harm's way with weapons and alcohol? Yeah, I mean, and I don't know what it is. It's just there's such a culture of this. Maybe the judge is afraid to go against the grain. They don't want to set a precedent. It's just easier to do this and see if dad's gonna make the trial happen. It really doesn't make sense. Robert says, I won't have any problem with being old and alone. I can afford it. These single cat ladies are probably eating the same thing as their cat. Braylon Barnes, the best decision for me to hire a surrogate will eliminate all of this. I met someone who has recently done this. I got the kids the house and the money. Some people are going to go that route. Now, I'll be honest, I kind of come for the single mothers by choice a lot, because I kind of have this thing in me where it's like, like my fear is that the kids are going to wonder where the other parent is. You know what I mean? Like, the kid gets dropped off to school, is with his buddy or her buddy, and she sees her friend's dad come pick her up, or her friend's mom, and then she's like, Dad, you know what? Do I have a mom? Or you know what I mean? It'd probably break my heart, man, But yeah, so getting back to this.
We all agreed that we needed to move forward with a forensic evaluation and trial. The judge asked each side to produce 3 names of potential forensic evaluators, along with the cost of each evaluator. And each parent had to recommend what percentage of the evaluator's fee each parent would have to pay.
And that's going to be based off income. He's going to have to shoulder more of that, especially if he's the one making more of the money.
In December, we submitted that information to the judge in writing. In early January, the judge emailed us her decisions that, first, the forensic evaluator...
Oh, so here we go. So the mom said that she wants dad to pay 85% of the cost for the forensic evaluator. He said he wants each parent to pay 50-50. And they each gave their 3 suggestions of names of forensic evaluators.
Would be one of...
And in both of them, the judge agreed with the mom, making the dad pay 85% of it. So see, this is the uphill. It's the uphill. And then the judge agreed with the mom's 3 suggestions of the forensic evaluator and not the dad's. I don't know. Every sense they took the mom's thing here, like whatever she wanted. Robert Spencer, single mothers choose to be what they are. That's true. Listen, if you get somebody pregnant and, whatever, she doesn't want to have an abortion or whatever, right? She's going to keep the kid and you're upset about it. You know what I mean? They're going to be like, well, you should have made a different decision. You know what I mean? But if a single mom goes that way, I don't think we really tell them that so much. It's like, here's all the help and assistance we can give you. You know what I mean? So as a guy, we're used to hearing that. You chose that. Shouldn't have did that. And that's all they really say.
Evaluators that the mother's lawyer suggested.
So, what's good for the can's good for the bottle. I mean, imagine if somebody became a single mother and you say, well, you should have chose better. Why'd you do that? You know what I mean? But, there's a kid involved, and then at that point, it's different.
Second, I requested we split forensic costs 50-50, but the judge sided with the mother and decided I should have the majority burden, paying for 85% of the cost, which turned out to be over $25,000.
Just for the forensic evaluation, by the way. Just for the forensic evaluation. I spoke to him privately, and I asked him, just total out of pocket towards the end of the conversation, like how much do you have to pay for all this? And without the child support, it was about $165,000. And during that time, at least $60,000 of child support was paid, because that, child support was based off of the current custody at the time. So you know, this is what you're looking at, especially if you're a guy with a decent job that makes money. Like, this is what you're looking at. And keep in mind, somehow you have to keep surviving at this point. Like, you have to be able to have a place so you can be like, look, I have a place. You know what I mean? You got to be able to pay all your bills. You got to pay the car note. You got to pay this. I mean, you know, I could see why a lot of guys might go MGTOW, you know. I don't want to be the guy that tells people to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I want people to go for it, what they want. But, I mean, this is just, I don't know. This right here, the Bible does not allow women to divorce. That is why women file 70+% of divorce. Trevor says super dramatic orchestral music. I love everything about how this is put together. I mean, it makes sense. Very serious. It's very meticulously just like charted out and the timelines put. It really helps me understand. Like, this gentleman is a teacher. Michael saying, God knew they could not be trusted with that much responsibility. Yeah, you know, my kind of pessimism over this thing is I kind of go with the traditionalism isn't coming back. And I do not deny the wisdom, you know, that's in there. And it's true. But, you know, it's just like we are so far down this alley we have decided to walk down. And it's like, you know, they hear that and they're just like, they just get even more angrier. You know what I mean? But we are walking into a new world, into an uncertain new world.
Even though neither.
My bad. I missed a couple of chats. Yet uses comic. Sounds fun. Klaus, GGD, man, I'm going back to the red pill rage phase watching this video. I know exactly what you mean, Klaus. And see, that's why it's important to watch this. It's why it's important to watch this, because you forget this stuff after a while. And this is me working at child support for 5 years, by the way. Like, every time I'd be like, I'd see like a judgment cross my desk and I'd be like, oh my God, I just want to go home and buy the new Assassin's Creed. I don't want to deal with none of this headache. It ain't worth it. Michael says, Jordan Peterson said women file the majority of divorces because of their emotions. Well, they have an incentive, again, to break the contract, especially if they're not the breadwinner, which, you know, typically the guy, culturally speaking, is encouraged to be the breadwinner. So then the women have more of an incentive to break it off. It's going to cost them less. Braylon Barnes, majority of the kids now today are raised by single mothers and without fathers. Yeah. And I mean, you know, nothing against Gen Z. They're cool. I'm a millennial, but the millennials were kind of like the beginning of that. And Gen Z is like just a pure generation of a lot of dysfunction when it comes to family life. And, you know, that's how you get all these things, right? Like what we see in the dating world now with, like, you know, just all these different dating styles. And it's like people are out here just trying to figure it out, you know, like nobody's inheriting any land. You know, a lot of people's parents are in debt and don't even know how they're going to deal with their retirement. You know what I mean? And it's like, when it comes to looking at how like marriage traditionally happened, a lot of us are out here flying blind and just trying to make something happen. You know what I mean? Klaus says the family court system is injustice. Yeah. God, in so many ways. Yo, JP, thank you for the donation. Appreciate that. We are cooked, man. Yo, it's not looking good. I mean, listen, to me, a lot of this has to go to negotiation. This is why I keep bringing up the dowry and bride price. God, if that was a drinking game, you guys would be like 6 shots in already. But the reason I bring up the dowry and bride price is just to emphasize that there was a negotiation prior to, like, you know, taking on this enterprise, this endeavor of family creation. A very real material negotiation that made things fair. And it's like, we cannot keep parlaying where it's just about love and it's just about this. And then suddenly, like, you're in court, it's month 11, and you've already proved that she threatened to end the child's life. And they're just like, well, we still think she's going to be fit to have custody. You know what I mean? Like, this is why negotiation is important. And I think that's going to become a theme of this channel, is just how important we got to be negotiating better. I think that's one of the things that's going to help. Like, even if the laws can't change or don't change that much. Gen Z here, 25. Well, you are more than welcome here. I am an older millennial at 34. I do respect you guys. I don't want to make fun of Gen Z. Now, some of your guys' lingo is a little weird to me. I'll tell you that. My dad was watching he likes to watch manufacturing videos on YouTube, so it's just like things being manufactured, particularly in like a developing country. And somebody was like had a voiceover of this video, and they kept using like Gen Z specific language, and it was like I couldn't like, it was so hard for me to get into the video because I kept hearing like words like slay, and there's like some random dude like making, you know, some car part. I don't know what the hell is going on. Women file 70 to 80% of divorces and get primary custody 90% of the time. Yep. Another Gen Z here. That's awesome. I know there's so many Gen Z people in here. Braylon Barnes. Check out Divorce Corp documentary on YouTube. It's gold. I think that was on Netflix at one point. I'll have to check that out. 25M as well. Don't worry, it goes up from here. I mean, it did for me, guys. When I thought I was going to be really depressed when I hit 30. Like, I thought I was going to be like, man, I'm not this, I'm not that. But like somehow when I hit 30, I felt more liberated than ever. Life felt better. Life has not been better for me. I can genuinely say like the last 4 years of my life have been the best 4 years of my life ever. And you know, I kind of have this new working theory. I can't remember if I talked about it last time, but I don't know if you guys remember me bringing up Adolescence 2.0. And we talked about how a long time ago, you know, it's like as soon as you'd hit puberty, you'd pretty much be married and then you're working on the farm. That's that. You know what I mean? Then it became like, you know, education took longer. Adolescence became a thing. You know, the teenage years became a thing. Finding yourself or whatever became a thing. And I think we've hit another one of those economic periods where it takes us longer to get our foothold in life. And you're not going to sit here and have it figured out at age 23 and 24. Very, very few of us are going to. And it takes a lot of us till, you know, late 20s, maybe even early 30s. And that period I call Adolescence 2.0. And Adolescence 2.0 is something I want to talk about more because I think if we accepted that, it would take a lot of pressure off of men especially. So that you're not feeling bad at yourself at age 25 because you're not married with kids and you're not on your way to buying a house or something. Because it's like, it's just such a tall order now. Our economy's not even meant to be that way. And not to mention back in the days when we had dowries and things like that, people's parents were very financially involved in the future health of their children's household. The household was helped to being set up from a prior generation's wealth being invested into them, like the dowry. We don't see that too much anymore. I'm sure some families do it, but it's not like a cultural thing. It's like, well, you're 18 now, you know, go figure it out. I had to when I was 18, you know, when the economy was great and you can just go get a job and a pension and all this kind of stuff. So it's a different game now. You know, it's harder than ever. Braylon said, oh crap. That's not letting me select Braylon's thing. He said, no, we would have to go to an AA meeting after this. Yeah. JP, hey, good looks, man. Trying your best to get this working day by day. You think Gen Z lingo is bad? Gen Alpha is even worse. Maybe I'm confusing Gen Alpha with Gen Z. That could be what it is. Thanks, Trevor. One of them that kind of gets annoying to me is like when people are like W comment, W take, L take. That one bothered me for a while, but then it finally grew on me, and now I finally understand it. But for a while, I was like, what the hell is this W thing? Like, and then after being inundated with it by the internet, I'm like, okay, W ain't so bad, L ain't so bad. It's a young people thing. They won. Michael saying, at 30 years old, men's lives only get better, and unmarried women without children only get worse. Yeah, I mean, I think it's true, especially if you avoid all of this BS right here, like if you manage to not step in this landmine, it can be like even better.
Their parent could afford it. The judge gave 85% of the financial burden to the father. Later,
there we go. We're not even past year one. Braylon says Gen Z says if you put a new engine oil in the motor, the car going be bussin'. Yeah, bussin's another one.
In January, we had another 10-minute appearance where we confirmed that we received the forensics order and that we each already set up appointments with a psychologist. Also, my lawyer asked for more equal parenting time for me. Again. After a bunch of back and forth between the lawyers, my lawyer told the judge, "We're seeking a certain level of fairness that has been absent." And then the judge lost it. She got really angry at my lawyer and started yelling at him, saying, "There has been no lack of fairness in this process from what I have observed with respect to how I see the parties." But she never talked about how she saw the parties or what she thought the facts were. She ran away from providing any justification or intelligent thought.
See, and that's what power is. You know what I mean? They have the power. And you see this in big cases too, even when it involves celebrities. It is up to the judge in a lot of cases, and the judges have power to make your life miserable. And all this, your honor this, your honor that, they're up there, and sometimes it gets to their head. Or you know what, it's 1 p.m. and they still haven't had their sandwich at lunch, and they're pissed. And you know, they don't like you. This is kind of how it gets into, like, you know how they say, like, women sometimes will receive like lighter sentences than men for the same crime. Like, there is a huge human element to this thing. JP says, I never realized how deep I was in the lingo sometimes until I had to explain to my uncle what no cap means. No cap was very weird to me. Like, I don't even understand how that works. Like, why a cap is associated with that. New engine oil, that's a dub. Oh, God. Dub hasn't made it to me
So
yet.
we were told to come back in March for another 10-minute court appearance to check on the status of the forensic evaluation.
This is 100 the ex-wife. This is the she's enjoying that you're suffering look. This is having your 4th grade teacher back in your life right here, by the way. You could be out here chilling. You know what I mean? You could be going all kinds of places. You know, I mean, this is what the passport bros are trying to avoid right here, by the way.
Well before the forensic analysis started, I had already gathered my facts and evidence. It took me 10 to 30 hours a week of work on top of my day job.
10 to 30 hours a week of work, of gathering facts and evidence, putting something together so you know what to say. Your average person, I mean, you know, writing skills are probably not this good. Their argumentation skills are not that good. You know what I mean? And it's like the other side of that's hiring a lawyer, but it's like I've seen so many bad lawyers. There's so many lawyers out. You don't know if they're going to do a good job or not. Father X has an excellent video, by the way, on how to select a lawyer. I only know a lot of lawyers are a waste of time because I've talked to so many family law lawyers that were just like, in my mind, I already knew, like, if the person who hired this guy just saved the money and just let us do what we were going to do, the same exact thing would have happened. Like, that's how useless they were.
We met the psychologist about 7 times each for a total of maybe 8 hours each. There was one occasion where the mother and I jointly met with a forensic psychologist so the psychologist could see how we interacted together. During my one-on-one meetings with a forensic psychologist, I presented all my stories and evidence as to why I was a better parent and about the mother's violence. Also, 2 of our couples therapists and psychologists, whom we met with in real life before court, they spoke to the forensic psychologist as well. In court in March, we discussed that the forensic report wasn't complete, but each parent had met the psychologist. We asked to start setting trial dates, but the judge didn't want to set dates until the forensic report was complete, so that only delayed the start of a real trial. My lawyer and I didn't ask for more parenting time because we got yelled at for doing so last time in court. In April, we had another 10-minute appearance in court where we received copies of the 40-page final forensic evaluation report.
Oh, God. So he finally gets this. So now they're going to set the trial. All of this right here, by the way, costs money. Like continuing a hearing, the lawyer's got to be there at the hearing. Everybody's got to be there at the hearing. All that stuff costs money. Now you can find your teacher on OF. Oh, God. I know. I bet you the family courts probably won't care about that. Robert Spencer, my ex gave up ahead of time because I could out-language her. Thank God. I mean, that's what, you know, and you're a very rare guy to be able to do that. You know, like I'm thinking of like your average car mechanic. Not that car mechanics can't, you know, can't turn a phrase sometimes, but it's like if this isn't what you do, if you don't sit here and read dry texts for a living and you're not this meticulous about documenting every single thing that's happening, when you get to court, like you're going to be flying in fog. You know what I mean? JP, almost a part-time, damn near full-time job just trying to get what you originally had. Exactly. And keep in mind, if you're married, being married doesn't help you with this process. It does not help you with this process. Cohabitation helps you. The state license, this means nothing when it comes to that. You know, you're going to go down the same path, especially if there's a domestic abuse allegation. That's why I have primary custody. Shout out to you for that. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. Any tips helps. Trevor Giga Chad. This poor guy, yes, very much so. And I mean, I really appreciate him making this video. This is something that genuinely helps people right here, by the way. The Roberts remain undefeated. Sir Robert.
Neither parent or lawyer had a chance to actually read it in any depth, so there was no discussion about anything in the report.
Wow.
The lawyers just said they wanted a chance to review the forensic report with each parent.
So now you need to continue it again.
And then see if, based on the findings, the parents could mediate a resolution on custody without going to trial. In July, we went to court and told the judge that we needed to set trial dates, because we had already been at this for a year with no resolution. We told the judge that the parents started working with a third-party mediator to settle this, but we needed to move forward with a trial because settlement might not work. The judge asked each side to prepare a list of witnesses for trial along with an offer of proof, which is a brief explanation of why this person's testimony is relevant. And we had to submit this list on the next court date in writing to the court. The judge also decided that all 4 petitions for custody and an order of protection would all be wrapped into the same trial because the topics are totally related.
They do that a lot. A lot of times they'll consolidate cases into each other so that the court can just hear it once. This witness list sounds pretty dang extensive right here. Dan the Man says, if it's this bad, imagine Steven Crowder's case. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think he's paying like $25K in temporary support until they figure out his actual income, so that they can go back and retroactively modify what he's supposed to be paying. And, you know, I think they got 2 kids. I think they got twins or something. You could only imagine that he's paying all her court fees. I mean, this is going back and forth. They got the ring cam. He's essentially dealing with something similar because they got that ring cam footage, you know, that was selectively edited. Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, hundreds of entire mortgages are being paid off of that divorce.
And the judge decided that because the mother filed her petitions in court first, that means that she presents her case and witnesses first. That was good for me because I could disprove the mother's false statements if I went last. And the judge requested written summaries at the end of trial, which is like the closing arguments you see on TV in court cases, except that it's written. The judge set 3 trial dates for November. Yes, another 4 months away, because that was the earliest available date for court.
Man, that was something that was pretty normal in Sacramento too. It's like, oh God forbid this happened during COVID time, by the way. You'd be screwed. I mean, most of us already, you know what I mean? God forbid. But that was pretty normal. Even before COVID time, it's like it takes that long. Like the courts have that many things that business is good for them. Let me tell you. So 4 months in, 4 more months of that child support, 4 more months of everything. Robert says, you can't be polite and nice in these cases. Very true. You have to be assertive. I've spoken to plenty of folks after a child support hearing that were like, oh, well, you know, what about this and what about that? And I have to tell them, like, why didn't you say that while you were up there? Michael Sand says, this is why men don't get married. If they cohabitate, they get just as much legal rights to their children as if they were married. However, women can't ask for half the man's marital property. That's exactly what I've been trying to say. This is what I mean when I say that the legal tree of marriage has been chopped at its roots, and that it is but a shadow of what marriage used to be. And you can get all the same rights and privileges that men used to get from marriage with way less of the risk, other than child support and custody issues. You know, domestic violence is still a thing too. If you don't sign the contract. So it's like they have built all these other legal systems outside of marriage in order to accommodate out of wedlock births. And it's like men need to learn how to avail themselves of that in order to avoid the marriage contract. The marriage contract, the marriage license is done. They'd have to offer some pretty heavy incentives to get guys to want to sign that again.
Also, I lost my job shortly before this July court appearance.
Uh-oh.
Recall that the entire existing custody arrangement was made only based on the fact that the mother was unemployed and available to parent. Since I was now unemployed, my lawyer asked the judge to give us equal parenting time, or to give me more parenting time than the mother. But the judge deflected that question to the mother's lawyer, who said they didn't agree to a change. And the judge, without any discussion, just decided she was going to leave everything status quo. I learned that the court could change the rules anytime they wanted. The court had decided it was a legitimate reason to give the mother custody because she was unemployed. But now that the father is unemployed, the rules change. And the court won't give the father even equal parenting time now that he's unemployed.
Oh, God. Okay. And as far as child support goes with that too, right? He lost his job, but they're not going to modify the child support order. The only time we as a child support agency would agree to modify the order is if they had a change in income. So losing your job does not qualify a change. It just means you lost your job. But if you had one job and it was paying you this much, then you got another job and it's paying you this much, that's a change in income. And now we could do a modification of child support to match the new income. But if you lose your job and you're like, I can't pay this, I'm out of a job, they're going to be like, we'll find another job, was really the answer we gave. So this guy's lost his job. He's probably still paying the child support. They won't even give him a change in custody, because at least if there's a change in custody, he might be able to lower the child support a bit. But just so you guys know, that's how that works. Not gonna lie, now I'm just getting pissed. This is almost worse than the nails on chalkboard videos, right? Like, I mean, yeah, I know. Honestly, I mean, this is one of the best videos I've ever seen on custody. Honestly, this guy is doing it right, because he's showing you what you will see, what you will experience. And this is like why I was working at the place. I came running home. When I first got my job at child support, after like 2 months, I was running home to talk to all my buddies. We were all 25 at the time. And I was like out of breath, and I was like, guys, you got to listen to me. Don't screw this up. Don't screw this up. Like, we're doing so well right now. We're having so much fun. Let's just fly to New York City for 3 days or something and do whatever the hell we want to do. You do not want to deal with this. And the guys are like, what the hell is wrong with you? Get a hold of yourself. This is what I was trying to avoid. Robert Spencer, why they always show smug chick? I love that picture. Trevor, if I wasn't laughing, I would be crying for this dude. Holy S. See, now you know I had to show it to you guys.
So if we didn't fully recognize the judge was a gender-biased bigot before this day, we were 100% convinced by now. And then
and listen, I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at him. I'm just laughing at how ridiculous the situation is. Like, it's just so ridiculous that it's like, I don't know what else to do but laugh.
Judge set an appearance date in late September before trial. Between July and November, before the trial started, the mother and I met with a private mediator several times. But that...
Guys, by the way, we're not even through year 2. We still have 2 full years of nonsense to come. So, just so you guys know, this is literally like holding your eyelids open. Yes, very much.
Totally failed, because the court gave the mother all of the leverage in negotiating a mediated settlement by giving her primary custody for no reason. So mediation was doomed to fail. In court in September, we submitted our witness lists. Then the judge called the forensic evaluator on the phone, and they scheduled dates for the psychologist to testify. The forensic psychologist testified once in November, once in January, and once in February. I was told that 3 times is a lot, and that it was weird that we called on her 3 times. But since the forensic report had positive things about me and negative things about the mother, I needed to make sure the judge was fully aware of the findings. I had already learned that judges don't read the documents they're given, let alone understand how to analyze them.
This is a really important point. So what he did is he paid extra to have the forensic psychologist brought on the witness stand 3 times. And the purpose for that, most people wouldn't do that because they're like, well, it's already in the report. The judge read the report, but that's not true. So what he did is he purposely brought the psychologist on the stand 3 times so that he can question her specific questions to have her just repeat what's in the report so it can be on the court's official record. Because then later on, when they tried to come to him with something smart, he can be like, this is on the record. We know these things. This is what the psychologist had to say. But if he didn't do that, it probably wouldn't have made much of a difference, which is very, very sad. Trevor says, not even a Banana Republic would consider this acceptable. Yeah, dude. Very true. Very, very freaking true. Robert Spencer, Clockwork Republic. Yes. And this happens every day. This happens every day to fathers across the country.
So my strategy was to ask the psychologist tons of questions on the stand to make her verbally repeat the things she had written down in her report. Basically, my strategy was to take the findings of the forensic report and shove them down the judge's throat.
See, that word findings, and that word findings is something you're going to hear in like the sort of legal arena. Like, these are the findings, and then the judge has to take into account the findings, and he's trying to get this in front of the judge's face so hard, even though it's already in the report and he shouldn't have to go to these lengths, to just be able to look, there was a finding about the mental health of the parents, about the intellectual development, about domestic violence, financial stability, home environment, the lying and manipulating of the mom. This is a finding in the report. All this, and he has to just keep beating the judge over the head, metaphorically, with this report, so that when the judge goes to make a decision, she has to come up with some sort of reasoned argument why these findings aren't true, or why they shouldn't have weight, into why the mom should, get custody or not.
Live courtroom testimony for everybody in the courtroom to hear the forensic findings, so the judge couldn't hide from them in her final custody decision. The mother testified 2 days in November, twice in January, once in March, and once in May. This included my lawyer cross-examining her. So the mother took the stand 6 times.
This is the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp playbook, right? I mean, this is what we saw when we saw the live stream of Amber Heard, Johnny playbook. This is the objection relevance, objection hearsay, you know what I mean? And objection leading. That's when all this stuff is happening right there. Robert says, if you use the word shove and judge in the same sentence, you'll likely not like the results. No. Yeah, forgive me, Your Honor. Michael's saying, if a state practices common law marriage, the wife can ask the court to recognize their cohabitation as a legal marriage, then allow the woman to file for divorce, getting half the man's property. Yeah, I read recently, and you might know better than me, but common law marriage actually comes out of wedlock births, like deep in even the medieval period. But there was a time even back in those days where sometimes that would happen. And when that would happen, essentially the church, I think, would sometimes make it so these two people are kind of they have to be married now, basically. And that was kind of, I guess, a proto form of like common law marriage, because it didn't happen the way, it was supposed to. So that's just an interesting factoid. Which I want to bring that up in front of you, but it's going to derail the thing. Will Buzanaris, best advice I got for custody court came from a lawyer I talked to in line for paperwork. Oh, so you were in line for paperwork and you just happened to talk to a lawyer. That's pretty cool. He said to focus on making the case for myself instead of making the case against her. That is fantastic advice. That's fantastic advice. Because it's really like, just find the flaws that are there on her end, exploit those, and make it clear for the judge and the entire court to hear. Really cool. Thanks for sharing that.
And recall that each day of testimony is around 2 hours in the afternoon. The mother had
I guess to add to that, what he's saying is also have them highlight the positive qualities about you. So it's like, point out what's wrong with her, but also point out what the findings that are positive for you are as well. So it's all in the court record.
Witnesses testify once in February, once in March, and twice in May. You'll notice long intervals between testimony dates. These aren't done on consecutive days, but only when the court has an open time slot. The judge set about 3 trial dates to start. At the end of the last one, we needed more. But there are only 5 dates available, scattered throughout January and February. At the end of those dates, we ask for more dates. But available dates are a month or more away. And that happened for another year. It's the most inefficient process you could imagine. The mother rested her case in May. I was called up to the stand that same day, and then one more day in May. I had 2 of my...
We're 3 years in. Man, I don't know why. I keep thinking of that movie, Mrs. Doubtfire, with Robin Williams. I mean, this is like almost clown level stuff, bro. You might as well get dressed up as a woman and pretend to be like an old English maid to be able to see your children at this point. Because, I mean, look at this. There's still a year and a half to go. He's probably $100,000 in with all this stuff.
Witnesses testify in June. I testified 2 more days in July, 2 days in August, 2 days in September. In November, I had my final witness testify, and I testified that day too. I also testified 2 more days in December.
Oh, man.
By this point, I had testified 10 times, but I wasn't done. That was only my direct testimony. I testified this much because I already figured out the judge was gender biased and incompetent.
I love this picture. There's a brick wall here and it says this is the court-generated barrier between father and child.
So my strategy was to drown the judge in facts and reality so she couldn't hide from the best interests of our son. If I cut my testimony short to end the trial sooner, there was great risk the judge would just ignore reality and then rubber stamp the mother. I had to break down the judge intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. To save my son, I testified for 28 hours until I had broken down the judge's bigoted and incompetent thought process.
I really admire this gentleman's tenacity and persistence. And I've spoke to him personally. And I know that he has, you know, a good job before this, and now he's got another good one. And that he had the resources to be able to do this. But my God, I mean, if a guy sees this and decides that maybe MGTOW is the path for him or becoming a passport bro, I cannot blame them. I mean, you know, for every like one of these guys is another 1,000 guys that couldn't manage to get this going on, you know.
From January until June, I testified 4 more times, including being cross-examined by the mother's lawyer. I chewed him up and spit him out. He got nowhere. Around June, we rested our case. The judge told us each to submit written closing arguments by September. In those 2 months, I wrote my own closing arguments. My lawyer only reviewed them. I wrote an 80-page summary where I completely destroyed any possibility the judge had of rubber stamping the mother for primary custody in the worst interests of the child. In November, we returned to court. The court clerk handed us a 25-page document. It said, "The court finds that the best interests of the child would be served by granting a final order of custody to the father."
There we go. Okay, he was finally victorious. This is after 4 years, hours and hours of testimony, you writing all this stuff, the forensic evaluation, beating the domestic violence allegations, losing the job, $160,000, and just for this, just $25,000 for a forensic evaluator. $25,000, and you have to pay 85% of it. $25,000. $25,000.
The father gets primary residential and legal custody. The mother gets visitation on alternate weekends. The mother committed domestic violence against the father, and so the father gets an additional 2-year order of protection against the mother.
Listen, I hate to say this. But it's almost better for you, as far as a custody case goes, to have never resided with the mom. And the reason I say that is because if you never cohabitated with her, there's just less dirt on you. She has less dirt on you. So when it's time for her to talk to the attorney, she can't be like, well, this, and this, and then they can cross-examine you up there on the stand. It's like if you barely have any contact or she's not privy to a lot of that information, it's almost easier to justify to the court that you'd be a decent father because there's less information against you. So it looks like he also got a DV order against her finally. Oh, and she didn't even get in trouble for lying about the first one. And so now we have court documents showing she was lying. They threw that charge out. He actually won the domestic violence order against her, an order of protection. Yet no one's going to go back against mom and get her for perjury. Oh, there's a few. That's what happened to one guy. He just said he identified as a woman to get custody of his kids. That's like Mrs. Doubtfire, but like the 2024 version. I would watch that movie if they made an update. Mrs. Doubtfire 2. Michael saying, it's called burden of proof. since the mother is presumed to get custody, so she focuses on how bad the father is. The man has the burden to prove how he is fit. He has to prove her unfitness. Yep, and so the burden of proof is on the man, and then that is a uphill battle. The woman does not need to prove the father is unfit. He is presumed unfit by the court. Wow. That's where we need this constitutional amendment. Trevor says the most expensive 4-year tuition a man can ever pay for. Yeah, I mean, really, $160,000. That's a down payment on the house. $160,000 is junior's college tuition. That money could have been invested into the kid. You know what I mean? For so many things. And that's getting the house paid off. That's investing right there. That's retirement, so you're not a burden on the other people of your family when you're older. Instead, all that money went to the court and the lawyers. That's junior's nest egg. Junior's nest egg. And it all went to nothing. Robert Spencer says he won in spite of the fact that he's like super terrible. Exactly, right? Like if this guy's so horrible, but then why did he win custody? So that's what I mean. Like the evidence is there in the history of the orders, right? The court is admitting he's not a bad guy. He didn't do these things and that he's a fit father. And nothing. 4 years lost of time. Nothing. Like there's no compensation for that. No compensation. Klaus, well, I have to say, this perjury stuff wouldn't have gone down like that in Germany. They would have gone after her for sure. I'm glad to hear that. Big shout out to Germany for that, honestly. I wish I had a German-specific sound effect. But good. I'm glad. I mean, you know, this is one of the things where it's like, if we're going to do the equality thing, then we need to go all the way with the equality thing, if we're going to do that. You know what I mean? And it's like, people have to be getting in trouble for false domestic abuse allegations, you know? I think like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp was the only one where I seen something like that. It wasn't criminal, but she owed him some money. And I can't remember if he even got the money from her or not, or just let her off the hook on that case. But that's interesting about Germany, and I'm glad to hear that.
The mother's order of protection against the father is not credible and dismissed. I was relieved that I won the custody decision at trial and didn't have to appeal the judge's decision.
Remember, just filing in an appellate court, I think it costs a lot of money. It really costs a lot of money, especially for something like custody. You know, we were just reading about those rich families, Gerald D., Michael H., little Victoria, going all the way to the Supreme Court.
That could have taken another year or more. But I was also extremely disappointed because I proved what I said in my petitions 3 years ago. And if the court had listened to me on day one, instead of rubber stamping the mother, we could have avoided spending $200,000 that could have gone to our son's college education. And I realized that if the mother wants custody, she can just go to court, no questions asked. But if the father wants custody, he has to go through an entire trial over many years. The gender bias is obvious. In the next episode, I'm going to discuss the pros and cons of this long trial timeline. In order for you to prepare your case, you need to understand what you have going in your favor and what you have going against you. These might be the darkest days of your life. They were for me. I'm making these educational videos to help you navigate this nightmare. If you subscribe, you can get updates when I post more videos. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends who are in a similar situation. If you like, subscribe, and share, it'll also help the YouTube algorithm get this message out to more fathers.
Big shout out to Father
in our
X
position.
here, guys.
Also, if you find this information
out.
helpful and you want to support this channel so I can make more videos, please donate via my YouTube channel's About page. You can donate via PayPal or Venmo.
Big shout out to this gentleman right here. This man is a gentleman and a scholar. And I mean, he could not have put together a better video, honestly. It's just, and just from stuff I saw, like he described it very factually. This is the reality. And guys, you know, just be aware that it could be this way. You know what I mean? The light switch happens. She's done. She ain't feeling you no more. She's dipping. You're a bad guy now, but you actually didn't do anything like domestic violence wise or abuse wise. I don't want to scare you guys. All right. I feel like this is becoming one of those videos that you watch before you get your license, like back in the day, like Red Asphalt. I don't want to scare you guys. I just want people to be aware of this stuff. You know what I mean? Michael says, remember, crazy men marry crazy women. You will most likely not find a normal, healthy man marry a crazy woman. You know, I want to believe that, but it seems like more and more it just kind of happens. I don't think you're wrong. I mean, you know, sometimes we're just really attracted to chaos. I think both people are. Like, you know how men have the Madonna whore complex and women have like prison guy and provider guy complex. And it's just like sometimes our bodies or consciousness just move us towards chaos, but we really have to be aware of when we're leveraging ourselves and how to like prevent an over leverage, especially. Dan the Man says, I looked it up. A man in Ecuador identified as a woman and got custody of his 2 daughters from their abusive mother. Wow. That's a freaking cool story right there. I mean, if that became a movie or some sort of Netflix thing, that would be hilarious. It would be like a spiritual successor to Mrs. Doubtfire. I'm going to rewatch Mrs. Doubtfire. I liked that movie when I was a kid. I didn't understand any of this. I just thought Robin Williams was funny. And I was like, ha, ha, ha. You know, he's dressed like a woman. That's funny. Robin Williams is great. And then now that I'm older, I'm like, that sounds like a horrible, like that poor guy, you know? Michael's saying, appellate court focuses on constitutional rights and case law, something the district courts are trained not to consider. Appellate courts are courts of law. District courts are courts of equity. That's a very good way to put that. Michael Sane is just in here dropping nuggets of gold for us like lay people. Like this is coming from deep in the rabbit hole somewhere. Trevor, Amber Heard is the reason why we don't have more Pirates of the Caribbean. I know, and I love the Pirates of the Caribbean. That first one was really good. And I remember that came out in the trial, basically because of that original allegation she did to him. I think Disney or whatever dropped him. And he wasn't able to be in the sequel, or they didn't even do the sequel. That's some sad. That is super, man. Man. Dan the Man. Appellate court costs $550 to represent yourself, but the lawyers are super expensive because the focus on constitutional and case law, not discretion. Doesn't it also cost a lot of money just to file documents and get the hearing? I mean, oh, what the heck?
What's up, Shah? Keeping it real. Tears of joy, cool stream.
Thank you so much. Yes, somebody tested out the text-to speech. I put that in there, and I was like very nervous that it wasn't going to work the whole time. But thank you for that. And then I can go to my tip history page here and reread it if I don't catch it the first time. Caesar, glad to see that you're in here, and I hope that you're doing well. Yeah, I wanted to go back into the comments on this just so we can like read a couple of those. Just real quick. Poor dude. I know. I'm glad he got custody in the end, but it was a real Pyrrhic victory. Like it was like at what cost, you know? And it's like, it's no wonder that a lot of guys just throw their hands up and they're like, I can't do this anymore. I can't afford to live. And then it's like, if you don't have money to pay for this, and let's say you can't pay child support at the same time, you can't afford all these attorney's fees. The courts come after you. They take your license. You know what I mean? They start levying your bank accounts. God forbid you're held in contempt of court and then you're thrown into jail. I mean, we talked about contempt of court not too long ago. Then a lot of guys just end up just being like, I mean, whatever. All right, whatever. You know, she wins. Maybe this kids will come looking for me one day. I don't know. But making aware is scaring everybody. Yeah, this is a real scared straight episode. So for the guys that sat through this, I really appreciate you guys. This was a real scared straight episode. Next week, we're going to have a nails on chalkboard episode, which, you know, may also be kind of stressful, but it ain't going to be this. It's not going to be this. Trevor, thank you so much for the donation. Big shout out to you. Big shout out to you. Women want masculine husbands and father figures, but society does everything to emasculate them at every stage of their lives, from child to adulthood. What they want is a utility. They want someone to just be a workhorse. They don't care about your feelings. And God forbid they figure out if you're winning. You know what I mean? It's like that. Like when you hear about like some athlete and he's going out with a young lady and everybody's getting mad at him and they're just like, why is he going out with the 20-year-old? That's weird. It's because there's a guy out here winning somewhere. And then it's like, as soon as there's a guy winning, everybody's mad, you know, because you just can't be seen as winning. Fantastic video. Thank you, Robert. And thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really appreciate that. Michael saying crazy men will have sex with crazy women. They usually don't marry them. Yeah, I mean, you know, we can. That's true. That's true. And a lot of the time, sometimes those women will then look for someone to then take care of those decisions. You know what I mean? They look for a safety net on the way down. I mean, normal men. Oh, normal men with crazy women. It happens a lot, but it happens so much. It's like, is it the same small group of crazy women getting all these guys, or are a lot more people crazier than have ever been crazy before? I don't know. Are those normal guys crazy too? Maybe. Mrs. Doubtfire is the comedy version of Kramer versus Kramer. I don't know what Kramer versus Kramer is. Let me look that up. Sounds like it could be pretty funny though. Sounds like it's a case between parents though. Kramer versus Kramer. Oh, here we go. Okay, I got the IMDb. After his wife leaves him, a work-obsessed Manhattan advertising executive is forced to learn long-neglected parenting skills. But a heated custody battle over the couple's young son deepens the wounds left by the separation. Meryl Streep, Dustin Hoffman. This looks like a pretty good movie. I'm sorry, I just thought about Mrs. Doubtfire again, and I immediately began to laugh. Dan, I just remember they were going to make another pirate. Yeah, they were going to make one. God. Sometimes you just meet women like that, man, and they just have like a different effect over you, and you're like, you actually are in love with them. Like, you actually desire them. It's different, and sometimes you could end up holding on to that dragon's tail, and it'll lead you into a place you never thought you were going to be. Michael saying appellate courts only cost $550 total. You have to pay about $100 on printing legal briefs for judges, so it's not expensive, but takes a year. That's not bad. I'm glad to hear that. So it sounds like the most expensive thing's the attorney if you end up needing that. Oh, great. Nails on chalkboard, just what we've always wanted. Mike's saying a lot of sex with different men makes women emotionally unstable. This is proven. So men who marry them learn the hard way in the divorce. Yeah, very much so. Especially if she wasn't like into him like that. And this is where realizing where you're over leveraging and learning how to protect yourself is paramount. And it's like, to do this, you can't even protect yourself fully. Like, you have to become vulnerable somewhere, whether it's to child support or this custody stuff. But getting screwed over like through the marriage contract just needs to stop happening at this point. So very few women are emotionally stable unless they marry young. War of the Roses. Anyways, let's look at the comments here. So this is a pinned comment. If you are going to navigate this family court process, you need to understand the steps involved and the overall timeline and trial process. Many dads often get vague 60-second advice about how the trial process will go. Very true, very true. Even from their lawyers. That's definitely not good enough to guide you or help you plan ahead. So I use my own 3-year timeline to show you a real example of what can really happen along the way. Your trial process in your state, they should be showing this guy's video in high schools. I mean, they should be showing him in college or something. This needs to be mandatory viewing. Your trial process in your state, given the facts of your case, will certainly vary from mine. Each case can have a different path, and this episode will get you well grounded enough so that you can start asking the right questions and head in the right direction. The last thing you want is to always just be reacting to whatever the next random step is in the process. Plan ahead, or else you are likely to get steamrolled. Caesar Quintana, big shout out. Thank you so much. Paul Elam's famous line is, "There are no victims, just volunteers." Wow. I didn't know that was from Paul Elam. Thanks for letting me know. And I'm looking forward to my discussion with him on the 28th. So that'll be coming soon. Guys, there was action on Twitter today, by the way. I wanted to show you guys this, but I didn't want to get derailed. And I might make a standalone video. But Dr. Stephen Baskerville, whom I interviewed on this channel, made a post, and Joker came out and said he didn't agree with it because Joker said if the culture doesn't change, then even if we get legal change, it's not going to matter. That went back and forth. I even left a comment in there. Paul Elam did. So that's a developing story. That kind of gives me an idea for a poll. Start poll. Will changing laws help, or will it mean nothing if the culture does not change as well? Start poll. Okay. There are no victims, just volunteers. I mean, that's very much what it is. And it's like when you get to the court, like ignorance isn't an excuse. They're not going to let you be like, well, you didn't know. Sorry, too bad. And that's just unfortunately the name of the game, you know. By saying you cannot protect yourself from family court and child support. They will get all your money one way or another. Man, I feel like I need like a very gloomy sound effect for that one, because it's very much true. They will come after you, and you will try to run. You will try to go in a plane. But it's basically this. This is the Banana Republic court. It's here with us, and it's been under our noses the entire time. This entire video is this sound effect. It really is. It really is. They can and they will. You have no idea how helpful this is to us dads out there here trying to fight for even partial custody. Yep. We are seeking a level of fairness from this party. This is such a great detailed video. Thank you from a wife helping her husband fight for custody of his son. Let me just go ahead and hit likes on all of these, man. Yeah, I like the video. You are such a strong man going through all this and growing wisdom and sharing to help others. Thank you for sharing. I'm going through the same, and I know I got the win as well. Pray to God he will open doors for you to success. Family custody battle. I'm challenging with very similar case. You are absolutely right, from ground to sky. Yeah, man, this is all good stuff right here. We do got the other bride price video. We're hitting about 2 hours, 5 minutes. That video is about 4 minutes long, so it's kind of quick, guys. It's a 4-minute video. If you guys are down to stay for a little bit longer, we can hit that up. Historically, the laws can change culture, and culture can change laws. The Red Pill movement will start affecting public support and then legislative empathy. I like that take. I like that take a lot. God, one thing I wish I could bring up is one of my dowry papers. Dowry systems and complex societies. I got like so many academic papers on this, it's not even funny. I just wanted to bring up China, because China is actually kind of interesting in the sense that they kind of have a both ways thing. Sometimes it's bride price. Sometimes it's dowry. Sometimes it's a dowry with then part of a bride price going back to the woman. So, you know, interesting stuff there. Where's one? Gosh, there's just too many. Well, I just want to introduce that just because before we go over this, it's gonna heavily focus on China, and it's focusing on bride price for the most part. There's only one there. I can't remember which paper it was. Status property. It's all right. I said we just get into the video. Dan the oh dang, it's not letting me pull up Dan the Man's comment. Dan the Man says, I think it was Dr. Baskerville that said if the laws are changed, it is only going to be used against men. So there does not need to be some cultural change. See, and that's an interesting thing too, man. Like, I'm kind of on the fence about this, because I would take legal change even without cultural change, if only if it makes the process harder for us to get screwed. Others saying, you know, even if there's legal change, there will always be these ways to kind of circumvent the laws that are there, right? And you guys remember when I asked James Sexton, I asked James Sexton about if we can have a law to where whoever exercises no-fault divorce automatically forfeits custody, you know, and financial assets of the marriage. And he wasn't keen on that. He didn't like that. And it seemed kind of like, even if there was a law like that on the books, what would happen is, like, if she still wanted part of the assets, or he or whoever, that's where the false domestic abuse allegations come in. And that, you know, and then it negates a lot of that stuff. So I guess what I'm getting at is that clever attorneys find ways to kind of circumvent how these laws then actually work on the ground. Like, the de facto becomes different from the de jure. Robert Spencer says, I used to watch Paul Elam and Joker years ago, even before they were cool. That's a pretty cool claim to fame. I mean, Joker made a video today, by the way, about that back and forth between him and Dr. Baskerville. So you guys should check out his video on that. And it seems like they're kind of going in on it right now. And I think it's a great discussion to have, because Joker's basically saying that, like, well, if the culture doesn't change, we're all still screwed. It's not going to matter. Dr. Baskerville's taken the side of, like, saying that that's rubbish and that we need legal change, and that once the laws are a certain thing, it's going to change behavior of people. It's almost like this nature nurture argument. And it's like, it's sort of like which one has more effect, which one's better. And I'm kind of caught in the middle of that, and I'm trying my best to understand it. I might even speak with Paul Elam about it a little bit to get his opinion on the 28th. But I think that's a very relevant men's rights specific discussion to have. Like, you know, this isn't the self-improvement thing. This isn't this. This isn't that. It's very specifically about legalities and the interface with culture. And then if you look back, it's like at-fault divorce went away because, like, one of the selling points for no-fault divorce was that it would stop collusion and perjury, because there were husbands and wives that were lying about what really happened to get a divorce pushed through. The courts knew this, but they really couldn't do anything about it because the lawyers were in on it, the judges were in on it. So they figured they would update the laws to kind of match what was happening and to match the changes in culture. So in one way, culture changed laws in that way, but I still think changing laws is important, especially when it's a matter of justice, right? If there's a clear injustice happening, then laws should be changed to correct that injustice. But the question is can they slip in and out of that, you know? Michael Sand says, because we are not dealing with majority rules with men and women, there will always be a chance to make things fair. Coverture law at common law caused women to believe they wanted to be homemakers. Okay, yeah, so that's an example of legality then going on to affect behavior of those that it's governing. All right, guys, so we're here to have some fun with dowry. You know, we couldn't get through an episode without talking about that. This is from Shanghai Eye. She's got 242,000 subscribers, but it only has like 102 likes and 3,000 views, which is kind of strange to me. I think it should have more, but whatever.
What is Kylie, which translates as...
Okay, Kylie. All right.
Bride price. And is it sexist?
Oh, God, here it comes. By the way, they use bride price to mean money given to... So bride price formally means money that's paid from the groom side to the bride's family, not to the bride in her hands. That's formally called the dower. But sometimes you hear this stuff used interchangeably. You'll even hear dowry used as the amount the man pays to the woman. And that is not dowry. Dowry is the woman's side of the family paying it, you know, to the man. And it can get a little hairy, you know what I'm saying? So just so you know, so there might be some loose use of the word in this video. So just to put that in there.
In very ancient Chinese culture, if I were to marry a man, then their family has to pay my family a certain amount of money or goods so I can join them to be part of their household. But why would someone invent something like this?
Thousands of years ago, when most of the economy was based on agriculture, one person equaled one worker. Everyone
Hear that? When the economy was based on agriculture, one person equaled one worker. So we talked about this, right, from our paper from Siwan Anderson. And the bride price is paid to her family because the husband is essentially taking a worker from that family and bringing it into his own family. So her labors are being repurposed to his family.
To work in the fields, including children. And one more person was one more income for the family.
Whoa.
And to marry traditionally meant the woman left her household to join her husband's family. And that meant one less person for her own family. Hence, the men's family paid the woman's family for that loss in labor.
Kind of makes sense.
And
See? And now women are working nowadays. Both men and women need to work. But why are these women asking for bride prices if their money that they're making is not going into the husband's hands or going into their father's hands prior to the transfer at the marriage? A bride price would only be acceptable if the money she's making from her career is going straight to her father's account to be used for the good of their family. Or once you marry her after paying a bride price, her income is now coming into your account to be used at your discretion for what's best for the family.
if a woman wanted some status in her future husband's family, her family had to also provide a gift to the man's family, and this is known as dowry or 嫁妆. The bigger
See, that's interesting about China too, is she's mentioning the status here, and typically as there's income stratification amongst men, where men have different jobs that can bring in a lot more income, especially if they're doing things that pay more. A woman's family wanting to seek one of these more higher status males would offer a more attractive dowry amount. And in China, it's not just bride price. It's not just dowry. It could be dowry. It could be bride price. It could be a mix of both sometimes. And I guess what I'm trying to draw attention to is that as the economies change in all societies, you see a back and forth of this marriage transaction. Some days it's a bride price. Sometimes, some generations, it's a dowry. And it all depends on the economics. So the answer out of this, guys, when it comes to the negotiation is looking and being honest about what are our economics now and how does that translate into a proper marriage transaction today. The other man says, I haven't seen the video yet, but I can see the crazy eyes. Michael's saying, dowry is gift, either by the man or the woman. Bride price means the purchase price of the bride. Yep, that's true too. And it's important. The language is very important. Trevor, those crazy eyes. All right, here we go.
The dowry, the bigger bully, and this is known as dowry or 嫁妆. The bigger the dowry, the bigger voice she'd have.
So if she's coming into this marriage with the big dowry, so her family is not full of bums. Like, she's coming in with some serious coin. She's got more voice going into the marriage. You know what I mean? And I think you can see this in high profile marriages of like nobility in Europe. You know what I mean? Like, if some of these queens are coming in with some serious coin from their family back home to join a new kingdom, then she being the queen does not just happen. You have to buy that throne. You have to earn the throne of queen, just like the man with the king. So it's like you don't just get to be there, and it's just like it's not a cheap seat. So all these ladies out here talking about I'm a queen. Well, if you don't got no dowry, like you're not a queen.
Long ago, Thai Li could mean meat and poultry, fabrics, wine, tea, and household necessities.
And I like that she mentions that. These are all very common items, but it shows you that this practice is not just something of the nobility. This is something of even the normal people. This marriage transaction thing isn't just for the rich. It stratifies throughout all levels of society, and it's the proper way to do a marriage.
It wasn't just to pay for that one extra person, though. It was also to demonstrate a willingness to engage in the marriage, to show you.
There you go. It's showing you got skin in the game. It's showing you're willing to make this commitment. You're putting down on it.
We're being serious about it. Now, Thai Li consists of a lot of cash, from at least 10,000 yuan to several 100,000 yuan. In the big cities, though, many women's families waive it, but they do ask the man's family to provide an independent home for the new couple and a car.
And how much is that? More than 2 million kwai in cities
$280,000.
like Shanghai.
But back to bride price, in recent years, this has sometimes become a thorny issue in rural areas across China.
It's come to a point where some of the husband's families say they're being extorted. Some women's families have gone as far as to request an exorbitant amount of money the day before the wedding, so the man's family would feel they can't refuse. The number of lawsuits related to bride price across China has risen from 85 in 2011 to close to 10,000 in 2016. Now China's Supreme People's Court has banned demanding Thai Li as a precondition for marriage.
You know, what we're also witnessing is a change in the market, because China has a lot of older women that are still demanding dowries, and they want to get married and they expect a higher price. But it's like, as market conditions change, we go back and forth, excuse me, not dowry, but bride price. We go back and forth between the woman's side getting the money and the man's side getting the money. And it's like, if you're a woman and you're on that side already, you have a career, you've done stuff, you should be saying, hey, this is what I've saved from my career so far. I want marriage. I'm serious about it. Here's what I'm bringing in the form, you know, of a dowry towards the guy, and then try to negotiate and parlay with that.
This is Shanghai's pre-marriage negotiations.
Pre-marriage negotiations court. We need to bring back negotiations. Make negotiating great again.
Here, parents looking for a marriage partner for their adult child list the material provisions they've prepared for them in hope that a match can be made.
This is so that parents of a future couple can meet first and avoid getting into a situation like not agreeing on bride price right before the marriage is about to happen. Two people just...
You know, like the Red Pill Manosphere talks a lot about like sexual market value. I think we really need to talk about like marriage market value. This is a marriage market.
Ask me where I'm from, if I would be interested in a match.
But this isn't just a problem of the women's families being greedy. Just think about the men to women ratio.
Here's what people think. Some people say a man should pay money for a woman because it shows him how hard it is to marry this woman. Sounds like a medieval prenup to deter.
The problem also is that there's a lot of cases where, you know, the men can pay the bride price amount, they keep it, they end up getting divorced later and he doesn't get the money back. So it's like you have a lifetime savings here to try to make this marriage happen. And if they're able to just divorce him like that, then it's like, why would you do that?
Possible divorces. On the other side, people say this perpetuates the objectification of women.
Look at this.
To deter possible divorce.
Sounds like a medieval prenup to deter possible divorces. Yes, very much so. Dowry and bride price help to deter divorce.
On the other side, people say this perpetuates the objectification of women. No monetary exchanges should be involved in marrying anyone.
And this mentality is on a huge up and up in modern China.
But for those in favor of Tylee, people say, wait, that would just make it even less fair for the women because traditionally a man always pays. And
see, and it's like, okay, the argument on the other side of saying, well, no monetary payments for anyone because it just objectifies the woman. Fine, I can even get that. But then you got the other women that are like, well, no, well, you know, we want all this stuff, but we still want the payment because traditionally, quote unquote, the guy always pays. What kind of reasoning is that?
Now a man gets a woman and a cheap way out? What?
See, what does that mean? She's getting a man, he's getting a woman. They're getting each other, but see, now they're coming in from, that's kind of a gynocentric style angle right there, like we see in the West.
Don't forget, if somebody paid, they will make you work for it.
In modern China, Chinese women are expected to take care of children and go to work and do the sweeping, washing, and cooking.
And the men are only expected to work. My point is, if one part of the marital tradition is to be banished, it should be tossed
probably making more money
out with an entire basket of traditions. I'd be totally down for banishing Tylee, or the man has to pay for the house, or the man has to pay for the car, the man has to pay for the duh and the duh, if it can be agreed that the man shoulders the same household responsibilities as I do.
At least she's negotiating. At least she's negotiating. I gotta hear her in good faith. And I like this video so far. It's really good.
I don't think you can earn respect by asking someone to pay for you. You kind of lose respect by doing that. If your boss
It's funny that she says that, but at the same time, well, let's see.
paid for you to work here, do you feel like you can yell at your boss?
I don't know.
See?
Gender equality aside, there's so many more layers to the whole bride price issue.
The bride price is it given to the family or the woman herself? If it's paid to the family in a single child situation, under Chinese culture and in a well-functioning family, one could assume this money will eventually go to the daughter. But it'd be totally different if the family has more than one child, or if the family is kind of dysfunctional.
If it's paid to the woman herself, and later she felt compelled to use it towards her family expenses, that'd kind of be like not paying at all. It's complicated.
Anyway, that discussion can go on for another 2 hours.
What do you think about bride price / dowry? Let me know in the comment section down below.
Let's get a load of the comments. Real quick, let's just look at the chat real quick here. I really enjoyed that video. I mean, I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Transfer of value meant authority in the marriage. The more money or value you brought to the marriage meant the more authority you had in the marriage. Yeah, and it makes complete sense. And that's how you get powerful women back then too. And a lot of women, a lot of marriages were used for a family to have influence within more prominent families because their daughter had married into them. And that is a thing. Michael's saying, if there is no dowry or bride price in the marriage, like in the Western world, that means they share authority, which creates an egalitarian society. Ooh, that's a fantastic point. Michael, you are out here just dropping wisdom, dropping gems. Trevor, China takes the concept of marriage being transactional and dials it up to 100, definitely. Michael's saying, societies are led by marriages. So if women have authority in marriage, they will have shared authority in societies. If men have authority in marriage, it historically creates patriarchal societies. Putting it together, you were just saying it so well. Like I can't even add anything to that. That's very, very well said. I mean, for me, it's like, okay, if we're living in an egalitarian society and it's 50-50 and all this stuff, then it's an injustice to ask the man to be the provider, especially if we live in an economy that gives women jobs or requires women to have equal representation in those jobs and equal pay. So we're dealing with a change in economy, and with the change in economy comes a change in the marriage transaction. So we need to understand what the marriage transaction should look like in that case. But The point I'm trying to make is if we understand we live in a 50-50 society, but let's say there's a woman who wants to be a traditional wife and a man who wants to be a traditional man and be the provider, knowing that we live in this society, he's missing something if he doesn't know he's supposed to ask for a compensation marriage transaction amount in the form of a dowry before he does that. Otherwise, he's taking a loss. Why would you get married and you're taking the short end of the stick in that? Or if the woman is the provider, she's a doctor and she's marrying a guy, normal guy, works at the state or something, makes normal money. Then she can ask for a dowry. You know what I mean? So it's like people need to just understand what they're bringing in this and what a fair deal looks like. It doesn't have to be insulting. It doesn't have to be something that objectifies anybody. It just has to be a fair economic deal. So they don't want to be treated like an object, but want to be paid like an object. Exactly. And that's where the whole thing falls. And that's where a lot of, manosphere content kind of showcasing contradictions in like feminist logic or tradcon lady logic really comes in and is useful. Michael's saying women are built to be cared for by men. That's why they never feel guilty to get money from men, regardless of the reason. It's in their nature. That's a tough question, and that brings up the nature versus nurture thing. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't want to disagree with you on that. And to be honest, man, I'm the same way. I could feel those instincts in my body, especially when I'm with a woman and things are going really well and I really like her. Like, I couldn't imagine that woman being drafted. To me, that's the stupidest idea in the world. Like, hell no. But then at the same time, like, that's just my, I don't know, whatever taken over. And then you're dealing with contradictory stuff where they want this or they want to work or these kinds of things. And you can do that stuff, but sadly, it just leads you into stepping into a landmine sometimes, metaphorically, maybe even literally. Michael says, women do not work to share equal expenses. They work to keep the money for themselves. You must remember this. That's very true. What's yours is ours. What's mine is mine. All right, let's see the comments on this. I got married 25 years ago. I've been paying for it ever since. From my experience and people I know, lots of husbands in China do housework. Well, I mean, even a lot of guys here. This is why MGTOW is growing. No headaches, no extortion. It all depends on the custom. For some ethnicities, the female side has to pay. For others, it's better to just elope, have kids, then come back to see the parents. And I wouldn't even say this is ethnicities. This is a manifestation of the economics in the area. In China, the bride price is $60,000. The dowry is the girl's quilt, which I think is called like a trousseau. Always some idiotic defense for every crap practice. Doesn't everyone pay for a bride these days in one form or another? In the past, and still in some parts of the world, they just call it a dowry. Today, it can be interpreted in many different ways. Through the courting stage, prenups and marriage contracts. He can throw an engagement ring in there. That's another gem from Michael. A man has to bring something to the table, and that's usually in the form of finance and status. Well, I'm sorry, but, so do women. So do women, and we see that through the dowry. How you enter into a relationship is how the relationship will end. That's an interesting thing. This is from YY. I have a Chinese girlfriend, and this makes me crazy. I make $5K per year, but what they request are insane. Now I'm wondering, I know how much money generally Chinese make. Question is, how they make that paid? Some years ago, me as a white man was asked by my Chinese girlfriend what I considered a suitable dowry would be. Being new to all this, I said with a laugh, about 12 chickens should do. She married someone else. I was to learn with the Chinese, you don't make jokes about money or dowries. When I told numerous other Chinese this story, it was always met with uproarious laughter. They could just see what a social gaffe I'd made. That's funny. Let's see what else we got. The bride prices is China's great cultural asset, and Chinese women deserve more money. For world peace and human prosperity, China's traditional marriage culture must be maintained for a long time. Okay. So true. It's like not paying at all. People have been criticizing women so much that they forgot how much effort women put into the fams. Those women use their dowry to spend on their man anyways, which is why a woman with the big dowry is attractive. I refuse. Gosh, I feel like that could almost be a big, like a t-shirt or a slogan, like instead of how big like her booty is, like How big is her dowry? Wow, I never seen a dowry so big on a woman before. Oh my God, did you see the size of her dowry? This day's okay. Well, Chinese man is all right. Well, that's pretty much that. I just wanted to share that with you guys because I thought it was hilarious. I'm sorry, guys, but the dowry stuff's not going to be ending anytime soon on this channel. I mean, it's becoming, you know, a mix between family law stuff and child support and also dowry. I've been trying to study for the Paul Elam interview, and I've been a little overwhelmed. I know things will be fine, even if I just go there with my background knowledge, but I've been trying to read a lot, specifically, you know, just stuff on the dowry so that we can have more to talk about and all these kinds of things. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm just going to be spending next week doing that. Hopefully I can get a video out. I do want to make a video on this Baskerville Joker situation. But I'll probably spend most of my free time just reading about this to get ready for the Paul Elam interview. And when I'm in Egypt, I really hope I can make some stuff happen in Egypt that's fun, like as far as YouTube stuff goes. Like I hope I can meet some cool people and interview them. Maybe even about questions like this and see what they think, or see what normal marriage practices look like there, or what they think about divorce and child custody, and if they have child support over there. Like that'd be really fun. And if like I can get on that level with some folks over there, that would be very cool, because I'd love to post like YouTube videos, you know, about that kind of stuff. And then I'll be in Turkey, so I'll be gone from the 3rd to 22nd, but hopefully I can get some content posted while I'm gone. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I've just been trying to work out. I've been running, feel a lot better. And it's just been going pretty good. Let's see. Shah specializes in men issues now. He has been officially red-pilled. Part of me feels like I'm, you know, because I've read red pill stuff for a long time. I have read a lot of it. I am a little annoyed with kind of where the red pill went, especially in terms of like the hypermasculinity, what I call it, and the Andrew Tate style stuff. And I'm sort of just done with that. I'd like to just kind of focus more on what happens next. You know what I mean? What happens next? I like the men's issues. I like the men's rights. I want to focus on what happens next. I do want to make videos that have nothing to do with this, but at the same time, you know, this is kind of where we're at right now. And I always tell myself I want to game on Twitch, but then I never do that. And then my fear is that I'm going to start a game, I'm going to stream it, people are going to watch me, and then I'm going to only have enough patience to play the game twice and then never play the game again. And it's just going to be like an injustice to viewers. So that's already a problem. Like I wanted to get that Wu King, that Chinese game, Black Myth Wukong or something. But then I was like, I'm probably not going to spend more than 2 hours playing this. Dan the Man says, ask them what they think of single moms by choice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I want to meet like some Egyptian guys and maybe some Egyptian ladies, you know, that wouldn't mind answering that stuff. Shah's first date. So how big is your dowry? I mean, listen, here's my deal. I date fairly unintentionally. And I just, you know, I have fun. I date. But the minute the whole, so what are you looking for? Don't you want to settle down? Don't you want to get married? That's you know, please bring that up to me. I love it when you bring that up to me, because I'm ready to ask a question just like that. You know, the way you really do it is what you want to do is you want to be like, oh my God, yeah, marriage would be amazing. Like, what does marriage look like to you? Tell me what your vision of marriage is. And then she's going to go on and tell you her whole fantasy about, you know, a house and 2 kids and all these beautiful things about marriage. You'll be like, oh, that's amazing. I love that vision. And then what you want to do is be like, okay, on average, how much does it cost to raise a child in the U.S.? Oh, $200,000 from 0 to 17. Okay, so 2 kids. So we're at about $440,000. Okay, so how much is the average house in this area that you want to live in? Oh, $550,000. So we're at about $900,000 so much. And how much of that are you planning to bring into this? Like, how are we going to attack that $900,000? You know what I mean? And then just see what they say after that. Off topic, do you invest for retirement? I mean, I got like a retirement from the old support of the child. And not really so much. Not really so much now. That more so was it. I do have some other investments that I do have, and we'll see how those go. But retirement's important, and you guys should have a plan for that. I try to map out what my life's going to look like, but I can never sell myself as being like very financially savvy or doing a good job with that. Or very intentionally and purposely doing that. Caesar Quintana says, hey, Shah, do you know when the practice of dowry and bride price end in Christian Europe? Oh, gosh. I think that was it started to become really tough, I think, during the Renaissance period. They even had funds for dowries in Renaissance Italy in which families can kind of put in. But sometimes those funds would become insolvent. Basically, it was becoming very expensive. And then after chivalry and industrialization and class mobility and stuff started to come into the picture, you started getting formal laws that outlawed dowries in a lot of places. And I can't remember when in England it did, but it was pretty much around the time of the revolution, French Revolution and stuff. I think early feminists were kind of arguing that, they didn't like that the property was going in the man's hand. So it was right around then that laws started to be made to kind of outlaw that stuff. And that is something I need to focus on before my interview with Paul Elam is what brought them to an end. So if we could look at what brought them to an end and how we got to where we are, then, when it comes to incorporating some aspects of dowry and seeing what's good about it, we can try to also see what was maybe bad about it or why we moved away from it in the first place. So that's kind of what I know off the top of my head. A lot of these papers that I read, kind of when it gets in there and it tries to talk about why it ended, it's kind of vague on it. And it's almost like there's not enough study on it. But I don't want to say that because it's got to be out there. I just haven't really found and read it myself yet. Let me see if I could pull up something. Yeah. A lot of it's just attributed to modernization, basically. And modernization comes with a change in the economy, essentially. And then, in other places, there's things like communism. And that was a factor in China, too, because they did have bride price. But then with communism, it changed a lot of that stuff. So I do wish I had more information on that. Let's see this. That's bride price institution. No, I thought one of these papers, this is remaining questions and suggestions. I thought there was a paper that talked about oh, here we go. Well, let's see what they say. So explaining the decline of marriage payments. This is from that economics and bride price. Marriage payments have tended to decline and eventually to disappear. The reasons why have not been well understood. So that's kind of the problem. Though anthropologists have offered some conjecture. So we got no hard evidence why. I think a lot of us guys can guess some things, right off the bat. Feminism's a thing, you know what I mean? But let's see. Lambiri Dimaki marks the advent of industrialization as the turning point in the history of dowry in Europe. And the thing about industrialization, too, is that you start to get guys that are making way more money than ever. So you're having an even bigger wealth inequality. So that would make dowries on the woman's side probably harder to come across, though I don't know if I buy that argument all the way. Let's see. Jack Goody. Jack Goody is the guy that did a lot of work on the dowry. And a lot of his work is where a lot of these subsequent papers kind of go back to. He's an Oxford anthropologist. Goody similarly points to industrialization in Europe as the cause of disappearance in marriage payments by the 19th century. According to him, the process of decline in marriage payments began with the urban classes, later followed by the rural. In Latin America, the disappearance of marriage payments corresponded to not only modernization, but the end of the colonial period in the 19th century. Several scholars similarly point to the 1960s and the post-colonial period as the beginning of the decline in African bride price payments. In urban areas, an increasing number of couples began to choose civil marriages not requiring a bride price. In contrast with customary marriage laws, some customary laws have also abandoned the requirement of bride price. For example, Zimbabwe did so in 1982. For those where bride price still occurred, the financial responsibility increasingly fell directly to wage-earning grooms rather than to their extended lineage. In China, because of the marriage laws prohibiting transfers, marriage payments declined during the collectivist period, but some research suggests a resurgence in the 1980s, particularly in rural areas. There, too, as the young have more control over the selection of partners and increasingly reside on their own, they tend to be covering more of the wedding expenses. Similarly, some evidence suggests the prevalence of bride price in Indonesia has dropped since the 1950s, and so too the dower in both urban and rural areas of Palestine from the 1960s. So, I mean, that's kind of what we got so far to answer that question. I think things like chivalry and romantic chivalry, feminism played a role too as a manifestation of this. I think there's some more paragraphs here. If we accept anthropologists' conjecture that modernization plays a role in these cases of decline and disappearance of marriage payments, then the interesting question to economists is what specifically about modernization does this? Moreover, why does this process play out so differently around the world? In South Asia, for example, modernization seems to have triggered groom price inflation. So it's the opposite there. South Asia has a caste system. And even though they experience modernization, since the religious aspect of it, people still want to try to marry into a higher caste or stay within their caste, and that tends to lend itself to a dowry model more, especially for long-term monogamy or lifelong monogamy. According to Botticini and Xiao, dowry payments disappear when the development process leads male children to become less likely to work and live with their parents. This change corresponds with the development and diversification of the labor market. Moreover, as the return to investing in human capital increases, the use of bequests to align work incentives becomes less important. In Anderson, I attribute, this is the same author that wrote this paper. She's talking about an earlier paper she did. I attribute the decline and disappearance of dowry to the breakdown in inherited status and endogamous matching. This outcome would follow with a modernization process that transforms a hierarchical society based on inherited status into a more individualistic one based on achievement. Once the preservation of inherited status through marriage ceases to be important, endogamy, an essential constituent of stratified social order, is no longer necessary. An implication is that in South Asia, where the marriage matching process to place less value were the marriage matching process to place less value on the caste of potential mates. Caste has to do with their religious hierarchy, where there's Brahmins, there's this, there's that. Dowry payments would eventually cease. Rao, on the other hand, links the decline in dowries to a fall in population growth rates. I kind of want to go over this other paragraph just to do it. Let me just look at the chat real quick. Michael Sayan says, bride price was morphed by the Catholic Church in 1215 to the engagement ring, called the betrothal ring. That's very fascinating, too. And I love how that's the case, because it shows us that we're still doing a pseudo bride price, because it's still, you guys hear, right? Like where people are like, oh, well, a groom should spend 4 months of his income on the engagement ring. That's normal. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. That is the pseudo bride price that's still under our noses and on people's fingers. Michael, I'll look into that. I'm a modern day Spanish Inquisitor. That you are, sir. The super chat is on the stream. Oh, got it. Michael saying in 1215, the church decreed that illicit marriage required that the bride have a dowry and the wedding take place in a church. But an illicit marriage was equally binding in the eyes of the church. Oh man, let me see if I can find you something about that. Was equally the illicit, and the reason they did that, Michael, was for out of wedlock births and things like that too. Prior to that, what held marriage together were people's families, and they really did that on their own. But eventually, the church wanted to be involved, and they made it a requirement that it happen there at the church. And there are reasons for that. Gosh, I kind of want to jump from one paper to another now. Let me see if I can do this. Fiançailles. Come on. It's a big paper. Damn it. It's a French word I'm looking for, and I know I'm not going to find it. Humiliated. I was just reading about this in one of these. This struggle was not only fought... God, I mean, if I start reading... I'm looking for illegitimate marriages, divorce and remarriage, control of sexuality, wet nursing and fostering, legitimacy in birth. I know I'm supposed to go back and read this paragraph, but let me just read this for a second. In many Eurasian societies, concubinage constituted a legal form of marriage, the children of which might well provide legitimate heirs. The church outlawed this eventually. In Christian Europe, however, concubinage was illegal and its offspring were illegitimate. Yet despite the constant admonitions against it, the practice flourished among laity and clerics alike, and was even encouraged by the church's restrictions on divorce, polygyny, and the marriage of priests. The church regarded such forms of union as invalid as well as illicit, considering the offspring to be illegitimate, thus changing the whole concept of proper parenthood. Illegitimate children are the result of not only unrecognized unions and unrecognized offspring, but also of premarital intercourse. Despite the church's views on these matters, the rates of illegitimate births and premarital pregnancies in Northern Europe could be very high. Let me get this off the screen. Sorry about that. Partly because of the late age of marriage for both men and women. This is interesting thing here too, because like as these practices develop, what it does is especially with dowries too, right? It makes it, women don't get married as early as they do in other societies, like bride price paying societies. So what happens is like while families are saving up for dowries, it pushes the age of marriage actually higher, which is kind of counterintuitive because nowadays people will tell you everybody was getting married at age, some earlier age, but back then it was actually later. The association between the late marriage of women and the high rates of illegitimacy is not perfect, but then perfect correlations are not characteristic of human affairs. What is obvious is that premarital pregnancies and births do not occur when the age of marriage for women is low enough. Because, it's easier to not lose your virginity before marriage if you're going to get married early. But if you're getting married late, you know what I mean? It's harder. What is obvious is that premarital pregnancies and births do not occur when the age of marriage for women is low enough. When premarital virginity is a function, not so much of morality, but of immaturity. Under such conditions, other forms of illegitimacy may be more common. In Southern Europe, the control of sexuality was closer to Eastern structures, or to Eurasian patterns. The reasons lay partly in concepts of honor, partly in the pressures of a more extensive or effective network of kin, but also in the earlier age of marriage for women in many parts of the Mediterranean, which inevitably meant that such control was more intensely felt and more easily maintained. I'm going to leave that for a bit because that's a lot, and we're going to read one more paragraph of this. Let me just look at the chat real quick. I know I got to bring this to a close soon. We're going on 2 hours and 46 minutes. Okay. Caesar says that it happened in a church was decreed by the Council of Trent in 1500. Yeah, I remember reading that too. I remember that. I read that recently. I was surprised because you always hear about the Council of Trent for something else. So I didn't know, I was interested to hear that happen there as well. Michael saying, believe it or not, our story begins in the year 1215. It was the year the Catholic Church, Pope Innocent III to be exact, created the Fourth Council of the Lateran. Altogether, the council created canons 1 through 70, marriage and exchanging of rings being outlined in canons 50 to 52. That's so freaking cool. Man, I'm so grateful for the folks that are in the chat because you guys provide some serious knowledge. And that really helps me. So this is fun. I'm going to read one more paragraph of this. Maybe we'll call it. This is going back to maybe why marriage payments declined. In Becker's model, dowries as a price which clears the marriage market may cease when they become an inferior way of providing brides with future wealth relative to investing in their human capital. But as mentioned, the empirical record does not demonstrate a strong negative relationship between brides' education and dowries. Moreover, no obvious historical link exists between women's increasing human capital and labor force participation, and a decline in the dowry phenomenon. In Anderson, I provide a model to explain this counterintuitive finding. It emphasizes the importance of the relative quality distribution of men and women in the marriage market and the complementarity between brides and grooms' characteristics. In this model, where men and women have both have economic value, but the quality distribution of men is more dispersed, meaning there's more heterogeneity of income between men. Quality distribution means some men are making nothing, close to homeless, and some guys are CEOs making a buttload of money, right? So the distribution is greater. Groom price payments can persist. Groom price meaning payments going from the woman's side to the man's side, because there's more of a distribution and income differences between men. There's class stratification, or income stratification. Intuitively, as long as relatively homogeneous brides compete for a smaller supply of high-quality grooms, groom prices will emerge. And then, so it's like when women sell themselves on homemaking, right? It kind of puts all the women's economic value amongst the same thing, because one homemaker and another homemaker aren't that different as far as like the job is concerned, right? But then they're dealing with men who, like, some guys are the captain of a ship, some guys own a blacksmith thing, some guys are not making much, you know what I mean? And whatever it is, so that creates a market where the women are trying to secure the higher price guys, and then the groom price, the dowries, kind of grade down depending on where they are in that status hierarchy. By contrast, if grooms and brides are equally heterogeneous, then the supply of high-quality brides and grooms is equal, and groom prices do not exist. I think this is kind of where we are now in our society. Both men and women are working. We both can have similar incomes. So, groom prices need not exist, and same thing with bride prices. But at the same time, it's like women are still under this impression that men should be, bringing a bunch of money or way more than them. And that's a fault in their thinking. Most of my dive into this is to kind of show that's wrong. According to this theory, the acquisition of human capital by daughters does not suffice to cause disappearance of groom prices, but the cause instead lies in a relative increase in the heterogeneity of women's earning opportunities. So now there's heterogeneity amongst men, but now you're also getting heterogeneity amongst women, and so that's leading to a decrease in groom price culture. Restricting the practice of polygynous marriage will decrease bride prices in Becker's framework. This is where you get dowries in long-term monogamy or lifetime marriage. Recent work by Tertild explores this hypothesis by calibrating a model to show that for realistic demographic parameter values for 130 countries, an outright ban on polygyny will lead to the disappearance of bride prices. And it actually leads you more towards dowry prices, because the man's cutting off his options and having multiple, wives possibly for that. And so bride prices have to go away because they can't demand a bride price since they're looking for a long-term monogamous relationship. Rao's framework of an excess supply of brides and dowry inflation could also explain bride price deflation, and indeed, others have correspondingly linked the decline in bride prices in Africa to a surplus of brides due to population growth and an increasing age at marriage for men. Anyway, so yeah, Caesar, I hope that answers it a little bit, and I wish I could give you a clearer answer, but even this paper doesn't give a clear one. They have some ideas why. Nobody really knows why. Ultimately, I think it's rooted in economic factors like that and what jobs are available to women. And if you look at the history of dowry, when you look at the history of Europe and Western society, it goes from bride price and polygyny to long-term marriage and dowry. So it goes from being paid one way to being paid the other way. And the reason for that was because of a change in the way the economy worked, from light agriculture to heavy plow agriculture and the rise of urban living in cities. We have reached another kind of change in the economy to where women are more heavily involved in the workforce and can match men's incomes on a lot of things. So when you look at the pairings of men and women, you know what I mean? Like, if they're coming with the same amount of stuff, then a groom price or a bride price isn't needed. But if they're not, and there's a difference, then compensation needs to be made. And this is the part we forgot as a society, and I'm trying to remind everybody on. Caesar Quintana says, good info, Michael. Yeah, absolutely. Michael is putting it in there. Caesar says, Shah, the Council of Trent is famous because it was called to address the issues with the Protestant Reformation and also reunion. Ah, yes. And also reunion of some of the Orthodox churches. Got it. That reminds me, because what I've read about, like, the European Reformation, and so the Council of Trent, if I have it right, is from the Catholic side, and they're addressing what happened on the Protestant Reformation side, and they're trying to match or rework Catholic doctrine to address that, basically. That's interesting that the marriage stuff was kind of thrown in there. Let me see my Europeans Reformation book. Oh man, I read about it in here. Oh, here it is, the Council of Trent. The Council of Trent, and this details it. So yeah, I know I read about this once, but I just could not remember. So I appreciate you reminding me. I really should go back and read this again. God, there's a lot of stuff I need to read. I have so many books right now, it's not even funny. But you know what? That makes me happy, so it's okay. Yeah, so that's the dowry. I'll be honest, like I kind of enjoy reading this on stream. Because I should be reading it while I'm not on stream, especially before my interview with Paul here. This is all stuff like I need to have in my mind, when we start talking. And it's a lot of information. So it's child support, it's dowry, it's a lot of other stuff, tangential to the manosphere itself. But Anyways, yeah, we're hitting 3 hours. This has been fun. I'm really glad you guys were here, honestly. I know last week I was streaming on a Friday, and then Saturday I was busy. So I appreciate you guys being here. Next week we're gonna do more nails on a chalkboard. Let me just show you guys right now, just to get everybody hyped. Let's get everybody hyped. Michael also sent this to me. So if anybody gets mad that this is not good, I want you guys to. I'm just messing around. Still my fault. But this is called How Conservatives Ruined Marriage. It's got 15,000 likes. It looks like it's from someone on the other side, I'm kind of assuming. We got a very ominous picture of J.D. Vance here. He wants to give people extra votes based off how many kids they have. And, he's had some interesting takes. So we're going to watch this next week. It's 27 minutes. That should be pretty good for a stream. If you guys have any other suggestions, please feel free to email me. Yep, Etta, I'm sorry. It's good to see you here again. I do appreciate you coming back in. We have been going for 3 hours. We had a fun time talking about custody. We spent a little bit of time talking about bride prices in China and dowries. And then we spoke about, the church a little bit. And we would have loved to have you here for that, especially to get, a lady's perspective. But till next time. To go over the poll real quick, it looks like we got 62% saying yes. Oh, gosh, is it going to pop? Will changing laws help, or will it mean nothing if the culture does not change as well? 62% say yes. 37% say no. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, it's not evenly split, but it's split enough. And, I'm on the fence about it, too. So you guys kind of reflect how I feel. Etta rocks, but late. Ah, damn. It's okay. It's all right. Next time, Saturday at 7 p.m. Trevor says, thanks, Shah. Love the stream. Glad you had fun, man. Etta, you can play the stream back. Highly recommend it. Ah, thank you, man. Hey, before you go, what's up, Etta? Let's see. I'll wait for the question. And the chats show. I know. Oh, there we go. Yeah. There were still some chats missing. Thank you for all the education with your videos and streams. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, big shout out to you. That means a lot. I appreciate that. I have fun. This helps me relearn stuff too, so I like to be able to just pull out things randomly from my brain, and it's not easy to do that, so it's nice to get a little bit of repetition. I think we had a great discussion here tonight, and we got a firsthand look of what a custody battle looks like. So I think everybody here got a little bit. Now, I don't mean to scare anybody away from, having a family. I'm sure that after spending $200,000 and all the stuff this guy went through, he's just happy to have his child with him. And I'm sure he would do it all over again. So, I'm not against that. Mr. Pitt says, changes in laws will force both men and women to move differently. If a woman knows the state isn't going to give her a check in custody, she might be more selective about who she sleeps with. And I think you're right. I know that Joker came out and said, culture first, then laws. But at the same time, I do feel like laws do have some influence on people. So that's going to be a tough conversation. And I'm trying to get more creators in the space to talk about it. I'd love to hear like Paul, some of the bigger folks kind of going in on it. You know what I mean? So hopefully we'll get more to come on that. Etta says, I don't know a lot about all this. Hey, it's not just you. It was like every single person I ever talked to that came in to talk to child support. I mean, they had no idea, and that was the part I felt really bad about. I just felt really bad, and it's just I just want everybody to know, just so we all know what we're getting into. Not that you shouldn't, or that you should be especially afraid of it. I don't want to be a doom and gloom guy. You know what I'm saying? But people should be very aware, and then very aware of how to not leverage themselves. You know what I mean? Etta, read my book. Yeah, I mean, Michael, also, you can always email me too, but if you want me to share that with the viewers or anything, let me know. I don't read. Well, I'll do my best to then help discuss it. Me either. Well, Michael clearly writes. Did it? Sometimes this is finicky. Sometimes it won't even show up in my YouTube chat and it'll show up here. Guys, also, did you guys get ads again? because I didn't get a single notification on this. That usually what would happen is I would get a black bar on my screen and it would say skip here, click here to skip ads, and I would do it every time. But the last 3 weeks I've been streaming, it hasn't been giving me the option, and I swear I've been doing the same settings. I've been putting it on conservative and all that stuff. So just so you guys know, if you guys see an ad, it's not because I want there to be an ad. Only thing I could suggest, if there's not that many folks in here, is to leave a message in the chat if an ad comes, and then what I'll do is just try to like look at other chats, especially if I'm going in hard on something, because I do want the folks to be in here. You know what I'm saying? No ads. I got YouTube Premium, so I wouldn't know. Oh, living large. All right, folks, I am going to call it. This has been fantastic. I'm going to spend a lot of next week studying, so if I'm not really around, you know, my interview with Paul Elam will be Saturday at 12, so we'll be filming then, and then Saturday at 7, I'll be doing a stream to talk about how conservatives ruin marriage. YouTube Premium and Twitch Turbo. Yo, Mr. Pitt, you're the reason why I want to play video games on Twitch, just because I know you followed me on Twitch. So I'm like, I got to do a dedicated game stream on Twitch just for Mr. Pitt. Anyways, all right, guys. Well, I'll let you go. I got to go eat something. And then I heard my cat screaming outside of the door because she wanted to come in and hang out. Well, not screaming, but meowing. So she's probably like, what the heck you been doing in there? Like, what are you doing in your room with the door locked? That's kind of weird. Anyways, see you guys, and I will see you guys next time.